So South Park has been airing since 1997, and in that time has amassed 28 seasons, a whole bunch of specials, and a movie to go along with that. And obviously, with all this content, there's a lot of interesting history and trivia surrounding the show. Like, there's so much obscure stuff surrounding this series, and I've compiled all these interesting topics into one big iceberg. If you don't know what an iceberg is, it's essentially a list of a bunch of interesting topics and facts and trivia and stuff relating to a specific thing. In this case, it's South Park, where topics towards the higher end of the iceberg are the most well-known pieces of information, and the further down you get, the more obscure it becomes, with layer 8 containing the most obscure bits of info. So anyway, today I'm going to cover this entire massive South Park iceberg I made, so I mean, let's get into it, I guess. Movie. So this entry is referring to the movie South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, which released in theatres back on June 30th, 1999, which was during the show's third season on air. Plans for a film began back in April of 1998, as series creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone had signed a deal with Comedy Central stating they'd create episodes of the series up until 1999, as well as creating a movie based on the show. Initially, executives wanted them to make the movie PG-13, as it would make more money, but the two insisted on making it R-rated, which they actually struggled a lot with. The film features lots of swearing. Specifically, it contains 399 uses of profanity, which was done on purpose, as there is a rule the MPAA has stating any movie with 400 or more swear words is automatically rated NC-17. So that's why they put exactly 399 in there, because they therefore get an R rating. However, it was still initially given a rating of NC-17 by the MPAA, which would have effectively killed its box office numbers. The film would go on to be screened to the MPAA 6 times in total, and each time was given the NC-17 rating. It wasn't until an angry Paramount executive called up the MPAA that the rating was lowered to R. So anyway, the film follows the boys watching the R-rated Terrence and Phillip Asses of Fire, which leads them to start using strong profanity frequently, as well as attempting to recreate an act from the film leading to Kenny's death, causing their parents to freak out. Kenny is then sent to hell, where we are introduced to Satan and Saddam Hussein, who are in a relationship. The US then declares war on Canada and plans to execute Terrence and Phillip. Satan reveals that this is a sign of the apocalypse, and that when Terrence and Phillip are dead, him and Saddam will be able to conquer Earth. Satan is unhappy in his relationship with Saddam. Kenny does attempt to persuade him to leave him, but fails, and so he warns Cartman of what will happen if Terrence and Phillip are killed. Eventually, the boys decide to try stop the execution of Terrence and Phillip by sneaking into the USO show, where the two are going to be killed. Despite their efforts, however, Terrence and Phillip ultimately get shot in the head, and so Saddam and Satan come up from hell. Cartman is able to defeat Saddam due to a V-chip he had put in his brain earlier in the film that would shock him when he swore, glitching out and instead shocking others, after he attempted to turn off the electric chairs. Saddam is verbally abusive to Satan whilst wanting him to help him stop Cartman, causing Satan to finally put a stop to it and throw him back to hell, where he is impaled by a stalagmite and killed. Satan was grateful that Kenny helped him in his abusive relationship, so grants him one wish. Kenny wishes for everything to return to how it was prior to the war, and so it does, with everything going back to normal and Kenny actually going to heaven. Awesome. The movie's events actually somewhat predicted the response to the movie itself, as many kids watched it, which made many parents angry. The film is also a musical, interestingly, and a good one at that. It had a budget of $21 million and ended up making $83 million, which at the time made it the highest grossing R-rated animated film. Video games. So South Park has had many video games over the years. Some good, others not as good, with the initial few not being great, but the later ones being good. The first game based on the series was simply titled South Park and released on December 21st, 1998 for the Nintendo 64, then later for PC and PlayStation. The game was a first-person shooter, where you'd have to go around various locations in the town defeating enemies. The second game would be released the following year on October 12th, 1999 for N64, PlayStation, Dreamcast and PC. This one being South Park Chef's Love Shack. It was pretty much a game show themed party game. Then there was South Park Rally, which was a racing game released for PlayStation, N64 and Dreamcast on various different dates in early 2000. The game allowed you to race as many of the characters from the series, and you could pick locations from the show to race around. A neat idea. It's not very good. These 3 early games were all published by Acclaim Entertainment and received mixed to negative reviews, with many complaining complaints about having poor controls and bad graphics. I mean, just look at this render distance. Acclaim would later file for bankruptcy in 2004. Rest in peace. From here, it wouldn't be until 9 years later that a new South Park game released, with South Park Let's Go Tower Defense Play, releasing for the Xbox 360 via the Xbox Live Arcade service. This was a South Park themed tower defense game, as you probably guessed. Then March 30th 2012 saw another Xbox Live Arcade game release, this time being South Park Teneman's Revenge, which was a co-op platformer in which you can play as Kyle, Kenny, Cartman or Stan, and you have to fight Scott Teneman's army of ginger kids to get your Xbox 360 hard drive back. Then, March 4th 2014 would see a return to full games that had physical releases on multiple platforms, with South Park The Stick of Truth, which was an RPG where you play as the new kid and are able to explore the town of South Park freely. This one's fantasy themed, with the boys playing as wizards and elves and stuff, and the entire thing revolves around the titular Stick of Truth, with you needing to get it, but everyone else wants it so it's stolen numerous times. The next game for the franchise was actually South Park Pinball, released in 2014. It's South Park themed pinball, there's not much I can say that the title doesn't already tell you. Next, there was The Fractured But Whole, another RPG game, this time being superhero themed, based off the Coon and Friends episodes. This game actually takes place directly after The Stick of Truth, with the boys deciding they're going to play superheroes now. The next game released would actually be the free mobile app South Park Phone Destroyer on November 9th 2017. It's a mobile action and collectible card game. Also, you play as the new kid from the two prior games here again. Then finally, the most recent game in the franchise as of right now is South Park's Snow Day, which came out March 26, 2024. It takes place after the events of Stick of Truth and Fractured But Whole, and is a 3D action adventure game. It received pretty negative reviews when it released, with it apparently just kind of being mid. I can't lie, I still haven't played it. Casa Bonita. Casa Bonita is actually a real Mexican-themed restaurant in Lakewood, Colorado, that originally opened back in 1974. It was featured heavily in the Season 7 South Park episode Casa Bonita, in which Cartman is desperate to attend Kyle's birthday party, which he's having at Casa Bonita, but can't because Kyle invites Butters instead of him, and so Cartman convinces Butters that a meteor is going to hit Earth so he can trap him in a bomb shelter, meaning he will be able to take his place and go to Casa Bonita. He makes it to the restaurant, but as soon as he gets there, the truth is discovered, and so he does as much as he can in the restaurant before he is arrested. In March of 2020, the real Casa Bonita closed because of COVID, and in April 2021, the owners filed for bankruptcy, so the restaurant was in a pretty bad situation. But on September 23rd of the same year, Matt and Trey offered to buy the place for $3.1 million, and the sale was completed on November 19th. From here, they spent a further $40 million renovating the place. It soft opened on May 26, 2023, and it eventually reopened fully on June 23rd, 2023. There was also a documentary made about the renovation process titled Casa Bonita Mi Amor, which you can stream now on Paramount+. Tegrity Farms. Tegrity Farms is a weed farm that Randy moved the family to back in Season 22 Episode 4, Tegrity Farms. This then became their permanent residence for many seasons, as well as becoming the focal point of many episodes from late Season 22 and throughout Season 23, with many storylines about Randy and his weed business, with even the original intro for the series being replaced by a brand new Tegrity Farms intro at the start of Season 23. Season 24 would also see a heavy focus on the farm, with Seasons 25 and 26 still featuring it, but less so than before. All of this focus on Randy and his farm took away from all the other characters, which ended up causing people to become fatigued with the constant Tegrity Farms episodes. This then led to reviews of these episodes being mixed at best, with some fans absolutely hating it and others thinking it was just okay. But finally, in Season 27, Randy sold the farm after admitting the business failed and the Marshes moved away from it. Then in Season 28, it was revealed they weren't able to get their old house back and so have been living with Grandpa Marsh at the retirement home. I'm writing and recording this before the last 3 episodes of Season 28 have actually aired, so I don't know where they live now. If they made it back home, that's great. If they're still in the retirement home, that's not as good. Wherever they live now, I'll put it on screen. Streaming Wars. So this entry isn't referring to the special of the same name, but rather the actual streaming wars, as in the battle between all the different streaming services that exist now. And South Park was heavily affected by all this. So this all starts back in October of 2019, when rumours began circulating that the streaming rights to the series were being offered to various different services. Fast forward a little bit, and it was revealed that HBO Max had purchased the rights to the series for $500 million. With this deal, they would get the entire back catalogue of episodes, as well as every new episode, which would be available 24 hours after it aired on Comedy Central. The deal would last for 5 years up until 2025, essentially meaning HBO Max should theoretically have gotten 5 seasons consisting of 10 episodes each, as you'd assume by looking at the history of the series, with every season having 10 episodes since season 17. The series officially became available on the service on June 24th of 2020. Now, season 24 was the first new season following this, and was impacted by COVID, so consisted of only 2 44-minute specials, as opposed to 10 22-minute episodes. But then, in 2021, Viacom was planning to rebrand their streaming service, CBS All Access, as Paramount Plus, Viacom being the owners of South Park, and with this, they realised they messed up big time, as they had just given away the rights to one of their biggest series, with many episodes that could be binged watched, to a rival service. They knew having South Park content would have been good for their service, and so they attempted to figure out some sort of workaround. HBO Max's contract meant they had exclusive streaming rights to every South Park episode, special, and movie, and so Viacom then created a new deal paying Matt and Trey $900 million for 14 44-minute exclusive special events for Paramount Plus, with 2 releasing each year, as well as renewing the series for 6 more seasons, running up until 2027. See, the HBO Max contract never mentioned a special event. How is it different to a movie or special or whatever? It just is. Also, once the HBO Max deal expired in 2025, streaming rights would revert back to Paramount, and the series would stream there. Now, starting with season 25, all seasons had 6 episodes. Why could this be? Well, if you do the math, 4 episodes have been cut off, which means there's 88 minutes less content in these seasons now. But also, we were to get 2 new 44-minute specials each year, totaling 88 minutes. So what it looked like is that Paramount stole 88 minutes of South Park from HBO Max in order to get people to subscribe to Paramount Plus. And apparently, HBO Max weren't happy about this, because why would they be? And so they filed a lawsuit against Paramount in February 2023, which then messed up the series even more, with no new main episodes releasing from the end of season 26 on March 29th, 2023, and no new special events since May 24th, 2024, with only 7 of the 14 having released, and HBO Max only getting 12 episodes of the expected 50. What I'm assuming happened is they just paused all the series with this lawsuit, which isn't great for fans, as 1, they had to subscribe to 2 separate streaming services to watch all the content, and 2, the content just stopped suddenly. Anyway, during all this, South Park was already available to stream on Paramount Plus internationally. However, for whatever reason, 17 episodes were missing. Now, 5 of these make sense since they were already banned for reasons we'll get into later, but the other 12 made no sense, as they'd never been banned before. This made people upset, because of course it would, 12 episodes have just gone missing. Paramount Plus was going to be the only place to stream South Park starting July 1st, 2025, and 17 episodes were just going to be missing. The episodes missing were Big Gay Al's Big Gay Boat Ride, Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus, Pip, Super Best Friends, Jared Has AIDS, Simpsons Did It, Cancelled, Passion of the Jew, You Got F'd in the A, 2 Days Before the Day After Tomorrow, Trapped in the Closet, Cartoon Wars Parts 1 and 2, 200 and 201, Chupacabra, and Ginger Cow. Then finally, once the HBO Max deal expired, South Park just disappeared from Paramount in all these international markets in July 2025. Great, why did this happen? The special events remained, but the series was gone. Then finally, the whole ordeal ended with the series being taken off HBO Max on August 5th, 2025, and a new deal was signed a few weeks earlier on July 21st, 2025 for $1.5 billion for 50 new episodes of the series over the course of 5 years. And also, with this, it returned internationally with every episode, bar the 5 already banned ones, available. What a complicated series of events just to watch a show. Great. Comedy Central. So Comedy Central is the network which airs South Park and has aired South Park since 1997. South Park actually helped Comedy Central because it was so popular. After it premiered in 1997, many people requested access to Comedy Central, which led to it being available in 50% of American homes by 1998. Cool. A much simpler entry for this one. That's pretty much it. Kenny deaths. So originally, when the series began, every episode would feature Kenny dying in various different ways. For example, in the episode Starving Marvin, he is killed by turkeys, which would usually be followed by Stan saying,
"Oh my god, they killed Kenny!"
and Kyle stating,
"You bastards!"
This became a well-known aspect of the show, and an iconic element during its early years. They put it on like t-shirts and stuff. This gag would continue until in season 5, Matt and Trey became tired of it and decided to kill off the character entirely and end the running gag. With him dying in season 5 episode 13, Kenny dies. Like permanently, he was killed off. Until he returned at the end of season 6, in season 6 episode 17, Red Sleigh Down. With him now not dying every episode like he did previously. He still dies occasionally though. Matt and Trey. Matt Stone and Trey Parker are the two creators of South Park. The two met whilst attending the University of Colorado Boulder. They've now worked on South Park for 28 years, with them also voicing a large amount of the main cast. Trey voices Cartman, Stan, Randy, Mr. Garrison, and PC Principal, just to name a few, with Matt voicing Kyle, Kenny, Butters, and Gerald, with many others also. Everyone watching definitely already knew that. Celebrity parodies. South Park is famous for featuring parodies of celebrities. You've got everyone from reality stars to singers to actors, usually being made fun of, but very, very occasionally not. Matt and Trey have a cynical view of celebrities and aren't big fans of them, with Trey having stated in an interview,
"When celebrities get made fun of, they really, they cannot believe it. These are not good people. For the most part, they're not good people, they're not smart people, and they're not talented people."
Many celebrities have responded negatively to their appearances in the series, some examples of which include Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who reportedly was upset and overwhelmed and annoyed by the episode, with her refusing to watch it in its entirety, and Jennifer Lopez, who supposedly fired some people from a movie she was working on because she got so mad at them for quoting the line, "Oh tacos, I love tacos," from the episode Fat Butt and Pancake Head. Others, however, responded positively to it. For example, Logan Paul responded positively to his portrayal and even recreated the Prime or Cred ad seen in the episode. Also, Chris Hansen responded positively to his appearance. South Park Studios. South Park Studios is both the official site for the series and the production company behind the show that was co-founded by Trey Parker and Matt Stone specifically for South Park, which was previously known as Braniff Productions from 1997 to 2006, and then Parker and Stone Productions from 2006 to 2007, and since then has been South Park Studios. You can see a lot of the physical South Park Studios building in the 6 Days to Air documentary, with it having all the tools necessary to make the show. As for the website, it includes information on the series as well as clips from episodes with 3 full episodes available that change from time to time. And that concludes layer 1. There's 8 of these by the way, and this is one of the shorter ones.
Who's the kid with a heart full of magic? Everyone knows it's Butters!
That's me!
Home media. This entry is referring to the many home media releases for the series, on like DVD and VHS and stuff. Initially, when the series first began airing, episodes were released onto home media on VHS volumes that each contained 2 episodes, with volume 1 releasing on May 5th, 1998. This would continue for a while, with there even being DVD volumes later on that were able to contain 4 episodes as opposed to 2. But then, on May 7th, 2001, the first season was released onto DVD in a box set, with the second following. And this has been the way the show has been released since, with season 26 being the newest season release as of right now. Of course though, there is other stuff, like the movie, which released onto many formats. These were DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, PSP UMD, Laserdisc and VHS. And then there's also compilation releases, like The Cult of Cartman or South Park The Hits, which feature a selection of episodes that aren't in order like the season releases or volumes. If you want to know more, I have an entire video on it you should watch after this. Banned episodes. So I already covered this in my banned cartoons video, so what I'm gonna do is just play that clip because, I mean, it doesn't make sense to just do the same thing again if I've already done it. So South Park has had a lot of banned episodes throughout its run, having a total of 5 which are all banned for the same reason, because they all attempted to depict the Prophet Muhammad, with the only one actually managing to show him being season 5 Super Best Friends. If you are unaware, generally in the Muslim religion it is forbidden to depict Muhammad as it could lead to idolatry, which is the worship of idols, which is also forbidden in Islam. Anyway, the first of these 5 episodes is Super Best Friends, which is season 5 episode 3 and released back on the 4th of July 2001. In the episode, David Blaine, who is a real life magician, starts a cult by performing cool magic in the street, then inviting people to his quote unquote camp for $69.95, which the boys fall victim to. Stan quickly realizes what's going on and leaves. He attempts to convince Kyle to also leave, but he chooses to stay. Stan is then stalked and harassed by the cult and so goes to find Jesus to tell him what's happening. Jesus then goes to one of Blaine's magic shows in Denver and performs his famous feeding of the 5,000 trick, where he multiplies a bunch of bread and fish, which isn't as cool as what David Blaine does, and ultimately he wins over the crowd. Jesus leaves defeated and realizes he is going to need the help of the Super Best Friends, which is a group comprised of mostly religious figures, being Krishna, Joseph Smith, Lao Tzu, Buddha, Seaman, Moses, and of course Muhammad. It's a parody of the Super Friends. Anyway, this whole time David Blaine has been attempting to pass his cult off as a religion in order to obtain tax-exempt status, which was denied. So to protest this, the Blaintologists are told to commit mass suicide in Washington DC, which is where Kyle finally realizes that the cult is bad. He tells Cartman they should leave, and Cartman, instead of leaving, snitches on Kyle, who is then put in this glass semisphere. The Super Best Friends then find out about the Blaintologist plan and head to Washington, where the Blaintologists have begun to drown themselves in the reflecting pool. They also begin to fill Kyle's semisphere with water. When the Super Best Friends arrive, Blaine brings the statue of Abraham Lincoln to life to fight them. In order to fight back, Moses suggests they create a giant stone John Wilkes Booth, who famously assassinated Abraham Lincoln. They do so and eventually shoot the Abraham Lincoln statue, which stops the Blaintologists and frees Kyle. Finally, David Blaine escapes by flying away in his rocket. Overall, it's a pretty standard South Park episode, and when it was aired, it wasn't actually controversial at all, and there was no major backlash or anything. It wasn't until many years later that it became controversial following the Giles Post and Muhammad cartoons controversy, which to very briefly summarise was a controversy where on September 30th 2005, the Danish newspaper Giles Posten published 12 editorial cartoons which featured depictions of Muhammad. This then led to outrage and violent protests and riots, which ended up killing over 200 people. Following this event, depicting Muhammad became more controversial than it already was. But Super Best Friends wouldn't actually be banned yet. Kinda. It was, but only by the channel Paramount Comedy in the UK, which would later be rebranded to Comedy Central UK. And even then, the episode was still shown on MTV in the UK, so it didn't really matter. Following all this, South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker would reference the event by creating the episodes Cartoon Wars Parts 1 and 2, which released on April 8th and 15th 2006. The first part starts with the entire town freaking out and hiding in the community centre after hearing the news that Family Guy will be airing an episode featuring the Prophet Muhammad. This has caused outrage and protests from Muslims all across the world, and terrorist threats are made. Everyone is fearing for their safety. However, the next day, it is revealed that Fox censored the image of Muhammad, so everyone was okay. The boys watch the episode and are confused as to what was so bad about it. However, Cartman finds it incredibly offensive, which is, very out of character for him. Soon it is announced that the Family Guy episode was only the first part of a two-parter, and that the second episode will be showing Muhammad uncensored, leading to another terrorist threat, and the town once again freaks out. Cartman decides he is going to travel to the Fox network in order to get the episode pulled. Kyle then has a nightmare in which Ike is killed due to a bombing, and this causes him to join Cartman and travel to the studio with him. Meanwhile, at the town hall, a meeting is taking place where the town decides they should literally bury their heads in sand in order to show that they are not a part of the Family Guy audience and did not watch the episode. Anyway, Cartman reveals to Kyle the real reason he wants the episode pulled. He doesn't really care that the episode offends Muslims, he just wants it pulled because he hates Family Guy. And if one episode gets pulled, it'll be easier to get more and more pulled, until the show is just off the air. Kyle attempts to stop Cartman, but he is unable to catch up to him, and he escapes. Finally, we see President Bush visiting the Fox network to meet with its president and attempt to get him to pull the episode. This is when he reveals something about the Family Guy writing staff to President Bush. The episode then ends with a teaser for part 2, which states, will the cartoon be allowed to appear uncensored? Will Family Guy be destroyed? Will television executives fight for free speech? Or will Comedy Central puss out? This implies they are going to show Muhammad uncensored in the second part. Now, after this episode aired, it actually received praise for its criticisms of Family Guy. Apparently, the Simpsons staff sent South Park Studios flowers, and the King of the Hill staff stated they were doing God's work. This led to both the shows being referenced in the second part. Anyway, moving on to part 2. Cartman arrives at Fox Studios and demands to speak with an executive, where he is then made to sit in a waiting area with Bart Simpson, who also hates Family Guy. Meanwhile, Kyle continued to walk and found a diner, where he discovers all the people with their heads buried in sand. He then is approached by this guy with a shotgun, who's a Family Guy fan, and ends up giving him a ride to Fox Studios. Cartman then convinces Bart Simpson to let him handle the situation on his own, and goes in to talk with the executive, pretending to be a Danish boy named Danny Pocket, whose father was killed after depicting Muhammad in a newspaper, an obvious reference to the Giles Posten controversy, as that was a Danish paper. However, the executives are moved by his story and let him go talk to the Family Guy writing staff to try convince them to pull the episode. This is where it is revealed that the writing staff are actually just manatees who create jokes by picking out 5 idea balls, each containing either a verb, noun, or pop culture reference, which, when combined, create a joke. It is also revealed that the manatees refuse to work if even one ball is removed, hence why the Muhammad episode cannot be pulled. Anyway, Kyle has arrived at the studio and he sees Bart and asks him where he can find the executive's office. Bart tricks Kyle into going into a maintenance closet and traps him in there, where Cartman then visits him and states he has some idea balls to steal from a manatee tank. He then leaves and steals one of the balls, causing the manatees to stop working. Cartman uses this to then convince the network president to pull the episode. Cartman then leaves happy. However, Kyle shows up after he convinced Bart to release him and is going to find the president. This then leads to a fight between Kyle and Cartman that ends with Bart showing up and knocking Cartman out. Kyle then reaches the president's office and tells him he shouldn't pull the episode. Then Cartman shows up with a gun. Kyle gives a speech that convinces the president to air the episode, and it does air with the Muhammad scene. However, unfortunately, Comedy Central actually censored this scene, instead just showing text that stated, "Comedy Central has refused to broadcast an image of Muhammad on their network." Matt and Trey had insisted the network show Muhammad, however Comedy Central was reluctant to do so and eventually just censored the scene, fearing backlash like what had happened with the Giles person controversy. They also made the statement, "In light of recent world events, we feel we made the right decision." The terrorists retaliated after the episode aired by making their own cartoon featuring various Americans and also Jesus crapping on each other, and that was part 2. So following this episode's release, there wasn't actually really any major backlash. It actually seemingly received more backlash for having Jesus shitting at the end, as it aired during the Holy Week for Christians, and it also wasn't banned for a while, with it being released internationally and also being available to stream up until June 24th, 2020, when it was pulled with the series' move to HBO Max. However, even still today, you can purchase this episode digitally from YouTube or Amazon, and also of course watch it on the Season 10 DVD. Now, the next 2 episodes are probably the most controversial ones on this whole list, and the second one only ever aired one time and was never released on any digital storefronts and was only available on physical releases. These episodes being 200 and 201, which are the 200th and 201st episodes of the series. 200 aired April 14th, 2010, and to celebrate it being the 200th episode, it features many different references to things from the show. So if you haven't seen every episode of the show, some of this stuff might not make as much sense, but you will still understand what is actually going on in the episode. Anyway, the episode starts with the boys on a field trip to a factory where they see Tom Cruise is packing fudge, leading Stan to point out that Tom Cruise is a fudge packer. Fudge packer being a slang term for someone who has gay sex. Tom denies it and says he'll sue the entire town, and he does. He teams up with every celebrity that has ever been made fun of by South Park and creates a class action lawsuit. Stan is then called into the principal's office, where he's told that this lawsuit could lead to the town becoming bankrupt, and Randy takes him to go apologize to Tom Cruise in the hope that he'll stop the lawsuit. Tom Cruise eventually agrees to stop the lawsuit if they can get Muhammad to appear in South Park so he can meet him. This is obviously difficult, as if they get Muhammad, they'd be bombed by Muslim terrorists. There is then a town meeting in which they discuss what to do, where Stan brings up that he has seen Muhammad before, back in the Super Best Friends episode I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, all the celebrities are confused as to why Tom agreed to stop the lawsuit if they can get Muhammad, where he then explains that Muhammad has the power to not be ridiculed, and that if they get him, they can harness that power to also not be made fun of. Anyway, Stan and Kyle then go visit the Hall of the Super Best Friends to hopefully get Muhammad to appear in South Park. It is then explained that it's not as simple as just getting Muhammad to show up anymore, and after much debate about how they could get him, it is agreed they'll get him to appear by putting him in the back of a U-Haul. Back at Tom Cruise's house, he reveals he has a machine that will be able to take Muhammad's power, which works because everyone has goo inside them that is their essence, which can be taken and transferred to someone else using the machine. Oh yeah, also Cartman's here with all the celebrities because they believe his hand is Jennifer Lopez, but in actual fact it is con artist Mitch Connor. This is a callback to a season 7 episode, Fat Butt and Pancake Head, and he goes to talk with him in a closet, where Mitch Connor reveals he wants Muhammad's goo so he can sell it on the Hong Kong black market for $50 million. Back in the town, they've managed to get a U-Haul with Muhammad in the back, but now now they have a problem, as they have to get him into Tom Cruise's limo without him being shown. Their solution to this is to put him in a big mascot costume. That way you wouldn't be able to see any part of him. The limo later arrives, but as they are getting ready to put Mohammed in it, they receive a threat saying the town will be bombed if they give Mohammed to the celebrities, and as he gets closer to the limo, it explodes. The threat came from the Gingers, who also want Mohammed's power to not be made fun of. This is a callback to season 9's Ginger Kids. Back to Cartman, who is attempting to ditch Mitch Connor as he's had enough of his plan. He's about to walk away until Mitch Connor brings up his father. Now, back in season 2, it was revealed Cartman's mother is actually a hermaphrodite, meaning she has both male and female genitalia, and thus is both his mother and father. However, Mitch states this is untrue. Meanwhile, the town decide to give in to the Gingers' demands since they're threatening violence. This pisses off the celebrities, so they decide they too need to use violence. But if they got violent, it would ruin all their careers, and so instead they go to find a rebuilt Mecha Streisand, who is Barbra Streisand after she was transformed back in the season 1 episode Mecha Streisand. But she is destroyed back in that episode, hence why she is rebuilt here. Mitch and Cartman go to visit Mr. Garrison to speak with Mr. Hat, who is a puppet Garrison used to use. It is revealed Mitch is an old friend of Mr. Hat, and that on the day Cartman's father revealed, the tests were faked, and that his mother truly isn't his father. The episode then ends with the Gingers wanting to see Mohammed and threatening to bomb South Park if he is not seen. This is a problem, as if they show Mohammed, they'll be bombed, but if they don't, they'll also be bombed. Following this episode's airing, a threat was made on the website of the organization Revolution Muslim, warning the show's creators and stating, "We have to warn Matt and Trey that what they are doing is stupid and they will probably wind up like Theo Van Gogh for airing this show. This is not a threat, but a warning of the reality of what will likely happen to them." Theo Van Gogh was a filmmaker who was killed in 2004 for creating a documentary on the violence against women in some Islamic societies. The post also contained audio clips from a sermon by ex-Al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki, calling for the assassination of anyone who defamed Mohammed, along with containing details of Sohn and Parker's mansion in Colorado and the addresses of Comedy Central's headquarters and South Park studios. This post's author was a guy named Zachary Adam Chesser, who had also tweeted about Parker and Stone on April 15th, wishing for them to be killed and burned in hell. Following this, many news stations reported on the incident, leading to it gaining a lot of attention. The outcome of these threats was that the second episode, 201, was heavily censored by Comedy Central, not South Park Studios, with Mohammed being censored, and every time Mohammed is mentioned, also being censored, and the speech at the end of the episode being censored. In the episode, Mr. Garrison refuses to tell Cartman about his father, and so he goes to find Dr. Mephisto instead. Meanwhile, the Gingers are still demanding to see Mohammed, and so he steps out the costume, only to reveal it was actually Santa Claus inside. Then, Mecha Streisand begins to attack the town, and so the super best friends get on their super best friends power cycles to go stop her. Cartman arrives at Dr. Mephisto's lab and is able to be let in by having Mitch Connor pretend to be a black person needing to use his phone. Meanwhile, Stan, Kenny and Kyle come up with the idea to clone Mohammed, that way they can give him to both the Gingers and the celebrities, and so they too go to Dr. Mephisto's lab. Cartman was just about to be told the truth about his father as they get there, and before they are able to clone Mohammed, the Gingers break in and kidnap him. Meanwhile, the super best friends are still trying to stop Mecha Streisand, and Moses tells them that Barbra Streisand can't resist singing duets with Neil Diamond, and so they get Krishna to take the form of Neil Diamond in order to sing a duet with Barbra Streisand. Jesus builds a stage, Lao Tzu uses mind control to get an audience, and Buddha and Joseph Smith find a band. This plan works, and they are able to stop Barbra Streisand. Anyway, the Gingers have captured the boys and Dr. Mephisto, and agree to share Mohammed with the celebrities if they share the machine. It is then revealed that Scott Tenorman is the leader of the Gingers, and that he has spent many years in a mental institution after Cartman had gotten both his parents killed and then fed them to him in Chile back in season 5. In the time he was there, he was able to learn a lot about Cartman, and now knows his father's true identity. Scott Tenorman had captured many of the town's residents, and he forces them to tell Cartman the truth about his father, with the truth being that his father was actually the same as Scott Tenorman's father, meaning Cartman had killed his own dad and fed him to his half-brother. Meanwhile, the celebrities have arrived with their machine and are ready to use it. They strap Mohammed and Tom Cruise in and use the machine, and it works, as Tom Cruise is now also censored and unable to be made fun of. There's then an argument over who gets to use the machine next, but before anyone else can use it, the super best friends arrive. Then everyone starts fighting and Seaman jumps on Tom Cruise's back, which leads to Stan stating,
Hey, look, Tom Cruise has semen on his back.
shocking everyone as he made fun of Tom Cruise, who then becomes uncensored. He is confused as to why the machine didn't work, but Kyle explains that, Yeah, so when this episode was aired, this entire speech was bleeped out. But because of something I'll get into later, we do actually know what he says. He explains that there was never any goo that made it so you can't make fun of Muhammad, and that the actual reason was because of the magical power of threatening people with violence. The episode then ends with the town preparing to rebuild and Cartman crying. Not because he killed his own dad and then fed him to his half-brother, but instead because his dad was ginger, which makes him half ginger. Also, Tom Cruise is upset and wishes he would never be mocked again, and so the boys tell him there's a place he will never be mocked, and offer him a way to get there, with the final shot being Cruise dead on the moon next to Jambu the whale, which is a callback to the episode Free Willsy X. After this episode aired, it was not rebroadcast ever and was never aired in the UK or Australia. It was not available to watch on the South Park Studios website, where in the past you could watch every episode, with it instead showing a disclaimer that read, "We apologise that South Park Studios cannot stream episode 201 at this time." After we delivered the show and prior to broadcast, Comedy Central placed numerous additional audio bleeps throughout the episode. We do not have network approval to stream our original version of the show. We will bring you a version of 201 as soon as we can. The episode was also never dubbed in any other languages and not included on any international versions of the season 14 DVD, only being available on the Region 1 release. And even then, 201 is still censored, however 200 is not. And also, after the threats, the previous episode 200 and the original season 5 Super Best Friends were pulled from digital storefronts and the South Park Studios website, though Cartoon Wars remained. Also, following 200 and 201, the entire series was banned in Sri Lanka, not because of the Muhammad stuff, but instead because they showed Buddha snorting cocaine. Now, around 10 days after this episode aired, on May 1st, 2010, a failed car bomb was discovered by the New York City Police Department on West 45th Street near the eastern corner of One Astor Plaza, which is close to the Viacom headquarters, Viacom being the parent company of Comedy Central. However, there was never any concrete link between these two events, and also the suspect who was arrested in connection with the incident had trained for many months prior to the episode's airing, so. Now, interestingly, even though Comedy Central had censored the episode's audio with many bleeps, the original uncensored version was leaked online by a 4chan user on January 31st, 2014. They had discovered that the uncensored episode existed online on the official website's web server and could be downloaded using RTMP dump. This uncensored version revealed Kyle's ending speech that had originally been censored, which was ironically about the effectiveness of threatening people with violence, and was censored because of threats of violence. This whole speech can be easily found on YouTube, and the uncensored full episode can now be easily found online. Also, interestingly, Muhammad appears uncensored in more episodes of the series which aren't actually banned. Firstly, he can be seen in the background of every episode's intro sequence from season 7 episode 8 to season 11 episode 14, hiding in the crowd here. He is also just in season 6's intro, both in a clip of Super Best Friends and also in the crowd. However, this intro has since been altered to no longer feature him. On top of this, in season 6's Bebe's Boobs Destroy Society, he's seen on a lunchbox with all the other Super Best Friends. This same lunchbox reappeared in season 24's The Pandemic Special. The Spirit of Christmas. The Spirit of Christmas refers to two stop-motion animated shorts created by Matt and Trey back in 1992 and 1995. These would later become South Park. The first film, referred to as Jesus vs. Frosty, was created during the time the two were attending the University of Colorado, and was animated using construction paper cutouts and glue, with it being filmed on an old 8mm film camera. The short follows four boys, who resemble the four boys we now know as Kenny, Cartman, Kyle and Stan. However, in this version, this is actually Kenny, as is stated when he is killed.
Oh my god! Frosty killed Kenny!
With the names of the others not being mentioned. They build a snowman and put a magic hat on him which brings him to life, where he then kills Kenny/early Cartman. The three remaining boys then go find Santa Claus to try get help. However, he is actually the snowman rather than Santa, and then kills the kid who resembles Kenny. This leaves the remaining two to find Jesus for help, and then Jesus takes the hat off the snowman using his halo, and the short ends. The film premiered on December 8th, 1992 at the December 1992 student film screening. It was then passed around Hollywood to various people, which is when Matt and Trey realised they never actually put their names on the project, which meant no one actually knew who made the short. They even had a friend of theirs show them the short without even knowing they had made it. The short eventually made it into the hands of Fox executive Brian Graydon, who loved it so much he commissioned the two to create another similar film as a video Christmas card he could send to his friends. He paid them $2,000 for this, and this is where the second short, known as Jesus vs. Santa, came from. This one is a lot closer to the series we know today, with a lot more elements being established. The character designs and personalities are now much closer to the ones we know today, being pretty much identical, with the Kenny looking one being referred to as Kenny now, and the town is actually referred to as South Park. In this short, Jesus appears and asks the boys to take him to the mall, where he then finds Santa Claus, who he is pissed off at because he had blemished the meaning of Christmas by giving away presents each year. This leads to a fight in which multiple people die, including Kenny of course. Jesus pins down Santa and the two ask the boys for help. They don't know who to help and so ask American figure skater Brian Boitano, who tells them this is the season to be good to each other. So they turn to Jesus and Santa and basically tell them they're both important to Christmas, and they make up. When the short was completed, Graydon distributed the video to 80 of his friends. This caused the shorts to get popular, which led Matt and Trey to further develop the ideas, which led to the creation of South Park. The two then pitched the idea to Fox, who after negotiations declined the series due to the character that would later be known as Mr. Hankey, who was a sentient piece of shit, which they didn't like. Anyway, the shorts would see lots of bootleg distribution, causing them to become a viral phenomenon, and catching the attention of Comedy Central, who then hired Matt and Trey for a series, which of course ended up being South Park, that premiered in August 1997. Production process. The production process of South Park is very unique and different to that of other animated shows, because it only takes 6 days for them to create an episode. For reference, a Family Guy episode takes around 10 months to make, and a Simpsons episode will take about 6 months. This is how South Park is able to comment on recent events very shortly after they happened. And this is a very impressive feat to go from thinking of an episode idea all the way to a fully animated 22-minute episode in just 6 days. This process was documented in the 2011 documentary 6 Days to Air, which follows the creation of the season 15 episode Human Centipede, and shows many aspects of the production, like the voice acting, lip syncing, communications with standards and practices, animation, editing, and character design. And it's available to stream on Paramount+. It's also just like on YouTube for free, so. South Park the 25th Anniversary Concert. South Park the 25th Anniversary Concert was a concert done to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series, which was most likely apparent from the name. It was held on August 9th and 10th of 2022 at the Red Rocks Amphitheater in Morrison, Colorado, and was also filmed, and would air on Comedy Central on August 13th, then became available to stream on Paramount Plus the following day, August 14th. Also, various pieces of merch were sold for the event, including shirts, hats, and hoodies. Now, the acts who performed at this concert were Primus, Ween, and of course Trey Parker and Matt Stone, with Rush being a special guest on the second night. The music played consisted of some non-South Park music as well as various songs from the series, which were Uncle Fucker, Montage, Jackin' It in San Diego, It's Easy MK, the theme song, It's Butters, My Robot Friend, Blame Canada, On a Colorado Farm, Gay Fish, Let's Fighting Love, Merry Fucking Christmas, The Ballad of Lemmy Winks, Cal's Mum's a Bitch, What Would Brian Boitano Do, and the Yelper Special. It also featured music from some of Matt and Trey's other projects like the Book of Mormon and Team America World Police. If you want to watch this concert now, the whole thing is on YouTube as it was posted to the South Park Studios channel on August 26, 2022. And you can also stream the songs on any place you can stream music. Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes was the voice actor for Chef, who was a prominent character in the earlier seasons of the show, but slowly became increasingly more obsolete. He would often give the boys advice. In early 2006, he was forced to quit the show because of the controversy surrounding the episode Trapped in the Closet, which focused on the quote-unquote religion of Scientology, which Hayes was a part of, the details of which will be covered in the next entry. He would then pass away at the age of 65 on August 10th, 2008. Scientology. Scientology is a quote-unquote religion, using that term incredibly loosely, originally founded back in 1954, that was based on the writings of L. Ron Hubbard, who was literally a science fiction writer. It has received lots of criticism for a multitude of things, like suing people who criticize them and using exploitative tactics to get money from people, and they've also received allegations of human trafficking, rape, forced labor, coerced abortions, and child abuse, with many people referring to it as a cult or scam. Basically, they fucking suck. Anyway, back in 2005, during South Park's 9th season, they created an episode about Scientology called Trapped in the Closet, and this was quite a significant episode for the time, because, for some context, back in 2005, Scientology was practically an off-limits topic, with most of the public being unaware of its horrendous actions, and very, very few people actually knowing what they believed in, which includes members of the religion itself, by the way, as lower-ranked members weren't aware of the beliefs of the quote-unquote religion. Matt Stone even stated during an interview on 60 Minutes Australia,
in Hollywood at that that time, Scientology was just simply a no-go. The lawyers would just say no. And whether they said, look, you're right, this should be completely up for parody, we don't want to risk it, and we don't want to go to court, and they sue everybody.
So essentially, no one would touch Scientology out of fear of being sued. And so, when a show as big as South Park really went in on it in such a significant way, at the time, it was a pretty big deal, and actually ended up being a lot of people's first exposure to the quote-unquote religion. So anyway, what actually happens in this episode? Well, it starts with the boys deciding what they should do, with Stan not wanting to spend any money as he's saving up for a bike. The others decide to go play laser tag, leaving Stan on his own to find something free to do. This is when he is offered a free personality test by a Scientologist on the street. He is then taken into the building and given a test, with them then informing him that he is extremely depressed, and that he is a perfect candidate for Scientology. All he needs to do is give them $240, which he does, using the money he was saving for his bike. After paying, he is taken to have his feet and levels read using an e-meter, which is some Scientology bullshit, with Stan getting obscenely high reading on the thing, shocking everyone, with the Scientology headquarters having to be notified because it's so high. This causes the Scientology president to come to the conclusion that Stan is the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard. This causes a giant crowd of Scientologists to gather outside the Marsh household, with the president then showing up to explain the news. Randy sends Stan to bed because of how late it is, and when he gets to his room, he finds Tom Cruise there, who asks if he's done well. Stan tells him he's okay but not as good as some other actors, which causes Tom Cruise to become upset because he's a failure in the eyes of the prophet, with him then locking himself in Stan's closet, causing Stan to exclaim,
"Dad! Tom Cruise won't come out of the closet!"
Now, when someone is in the closet, it means they are secretly gay, and when they announce they are gay, they have come out the closet. So them saying Tom Cruise is in the closet and won't come out is effectively calling him secretly gay, which references rumours from various sources that stated Tom Cruise might be secretly gay. However, they had to do it like this because they couldn't just outright say he's gay, because then they'd get sued, and Tom Cruise had sued people prior to this for claiming he was gay. So they put him in a literal closet and never outright said he's gay. Instead, they spent the rest of the episode repeating that Tom Cruise is in the closet and won't come out, with many celebrities and other people attempting to get him out and him refusing. Anyway, back to the episode. The president of Scientology then explains the secret doctrine behind the Church of Scientology to Stan, and the entire time the story is being told, the screen keeps showing the message, "This is what Scientologists actually believe," with the joke here being that there is no joke, and you'll see why. The story Scientologists believe is that 75 million years ago, there was a galactic federation of planets ruled by an alien named Lord Xenu, who thought his galaxy was overpopulated and so rounded up a bunch of aliens from various planets and then proceeded to freeze them. These frozen aliens were then put onto Xenu's galactic cruisers, which then took the aliens to Earth and dropped them into the volcanoes of Hawaii. This killed the aliens, however their souls lived on and floated up towards the sky, but Xenu had prepared for this by building a giant soul catcher in the sky. The souls were then taken to a huge soul brainwashing facility, where they were made to watch brainwashing material for days, tricking them into believing a false reality. He would then release the souls, who would go on to aimlessly roam the earth, confused. But then, at the dawn of man, the souls attach themselves to all of mankind, which is what causes our fears, confusions, and problems. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Now, what's especially notable about this is that this story was only told to very few members of this quote-unquote religion. You weren't informed of this until you reached operating feet and level 3, which would cost you about $200,000 to reach and take several years of dedication. And I mean, at that point you're kinda in pretty deep, so it was a very secret story, with most members not knowing about it, and some even stating they first learnt the story from South Park. So yeah, this story that was kept hidden from the general public and most members of this quote-unquote religion that would ordinarily cost $200,000 to hear was just broadcast on TV for anyone to see, and it was actually like the first time this had been publicly revealed. The episode goes on with the president then asking Stan to carry on where L. Ron had left off and keep writing, which he does. Stan writes a bunch of stuff that makes the president happy, but then he writes that Scientologists should no longer have to pay money to belong, which pisses off the president, who goes on to tell Stan that the whole story is fake and this thing is a scam on a global scale. He then tells Stan they can make $3 million and convinces him to go along with the scam. Eventually, Stan's new writing is done and he goes outside to tell the members the new writing, but as he speaks he feels bad and so tells all the members that he's not L. Ron Hubbard and that Scientology is just a big fat global scam. This causes all the celebrities who ended up in the closet to come out, and the Scientologists state they're going to sue Stan. This obviously references the many past lawsuits surrounding Scientology. Stan then states, "I'm not scared of you, sue me," which is effectively Matt and Trey saying directly to the Church of Scientology to try sue them. And the credits then play, but with everyone's names being replaced with John and Jane Smith. This is a joke, as it's hiding the names of the people who worked on the show, therefore making it harder for Scientology to sue them. So what happened after this episode aired? Well, a lot of things. Firstly, there was the departure of Isaac Hayes, which was announced on March 13th of 2006, with a statement that was credited to Hayes that reads, "There is a place in this world for satire, but there is a time when satire ends and intolerance and bigotry towards religious beliefs of others begins. Religious beliefs are sacred to people, and at all times should be respected and honoured. As a civil rights activist of the past 40 years, I cannot support a show that disrespects those beliefs and practices." In response to this, Matt Stone said, "This is 100% having to do with his faith of Scientology. He has no problem, and he's cashed plenty of checks with our show making fun of Christians." So with this, Chef was written out of the show with the episode The Return of Chef, in which he dies by falling off a bridge, getting impaled by a stick, eaten by a mountain lion and grizzly bear, and getting shot. Isaac Hayes would later pass away on August 10th, 2008. Now, at the time, everyone thought that Hayes himself had chosen to quit the show. However, the truth was later revealed in 2016 by his son, Isaac Hayes III, who said, "Isaac Hayes did not quit South Park. Someone quit South Park for him. What happened was that in January 2006, my dad had a stroke and lost the ability to speak. He really didn't have that much comprehension, and he had to relearn to play the piano and a lot of different things. He was in no position to resign under his own knowledge. At the time, everybody around my father was involved in Scientology, his assistants, the core group of people. So someone quit South Park on Isaac Hayes' behalf. We don't know who. So basically, Isaac Hayes was forced to quit the show by Scientology." Another thing that happened following the episode was Scientology supposedly did an investigation into Matt and Trey, which was revealed by Marty Rathbun, who was a former Scientology executive who left in 2005. He leaked an internal Scientology document that detailed an investigation by the Scientology's Office of Special Affairs into the two, which involved them apparently attempting to find a direct line to Matt and Trey by identifying who their close friends were. They would then search their trash, purchase their phone records, hack airline reservations, read personal letters, and go through bank statements. They would also watch over South Park Studios and find out the catering service they use for lunch, the location of the two's parking spaces, and also the makes and models of their cars, with them even taking the license plate numbers of the cars. And even with all this creepy shit, they couldn't find anything on Matt and Trey, and so they then attempted to get a film student employed at South Park Studios as a spy for the church, who could get information directly from the studio to use. And it's unclear as to whether or not this plan went ahead and worked, but ultimately, Scientology was unable to find any negative information about Matt and Trey they could use against them. Then there was the Closetgate incident. Essentially, the episode was going to be rebroadcast on Comedy Central on March 15, 2006, but would later be replaced with the episode Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls instead, with Comedy Central stating that the episode was swapped out as a tribute to Isaac Hayes following the news of his departure from the series, which had happened 2 days prior. However, the following day, it was alleged by the HollywoodInterrupted.com blog that the episode airing had actually been cancelled because Tom Cruise had threatened to boycott the publicity tour for Mission Impossible 3, because Mission Impossible is made by Paramount, who is owned by Viacom, who also owns Comedy Central. This story would later be reported by multiple other news sites, with Tom Cruise's representative responding by stating, quote, "This has nothing to do with us. Still though, South Park fans weren't happy and threatened to boycott Mission Impossible 3 until the episode re-aired." They would also upload the episode onto various places all over the internet, including YouTube, where it got 700,000 views. All of this led to Matt Stone and Trey Parker responding with this statement through their lawyer, quote, "For immediate release, Scientology, you may have won this battle, but the million-year war for Earth has just begun. Temporarily anonymizing our episode will not stop us from keeping Thetans forever trapped in your pitiful man bodies. Curses and drat. You have obstructed us for now, but your feeble bid to save humanity will fail. Hail Xenu." Signed, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, servants of the Dark Lord Xenu. Tom Cruise also responded to this situation when asked about it during an interview on ABC's Primetime in April 2006, stating, "First of all, could you ever imagine sitting down with anyone? I would never sit down with someone and question them on their beliefs. Here's the thing, I'm really not even going to dignify this. I honestly didn't really even know about it. I'm working, making my movie, I've got my family, I'm busy. I don't spend my days going, what are people saying about me?" Following this, the episode would be screened for free at London's National Film Theatre in May of 2006, with 3 copies of the episode being handed out after the screening, which was followed followed by a discussion with Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who stated that the screening was a display of free speech. Eventually, the episode would re-air on Comedy Central on July 19, 2006, which interestingly was over 2 months after Mission Impossible 3 had come out. So, then it aired again on July 23rd and September 24th. Albums. So there have been numerous albums released based on the series over the years. The first one was titled Chef Aid: The South Park Album, which released November 24th, 1998, which was over a month after the Chef Aid episode had released, with the episode being about a concert being played in order to save Chef from being sent to prison, and this album being based on that and presented as a live concert. It features 22 songs and has a runtime of 76 minutes 42 seconds. These songs include ones from episodes like Chocolate Salty Balls and Carl's Mom Is a Big Fat Bitch, ones inspired by the show like Kenny's Dead, and others unrelated to the show. The next album released was actually the South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut soundtrack, which contained 12 of the songs from the film, as well as 8 others based on it, totaling 20 tracks. It released June 22nd, 1999 and has a runtime of 50 minutes 25 seconds. Now, strangely, some songs from the film are simply just absent here, like Wendy's song and Hell Isn't Good. The next album was Mr. Hankey's Christmas Classics, based on the episode of the same name that featured Mr. Hankey as a host, showing off various different Christmas-themed songs performed by characters from the show. These songs, along with some extra ones, were then compiled together onto the album of the same name, which released on November 23rd, 1999, and had a runtime of 36 minutes 34 seconds. That was the final South Park album to be released. Season 27 issues. So season 27 and 28, I guess, but we'll get into that, had some issues when they were releasing. Firstly, it was the first time South Park had missed a year, as previously new episodes released every year. However, all we got for 2024 was a special event. This was most likely due to the lawsuit and streaming wars mentioned earlier. But then finally, it was announced season 27 would be premiering July 9th of 2025. Great, until it was then announced that it had been delayed by 2 weeks and would now be releasing on July 23rd of 2025. The reason for this being the merger between Skydance Media and Paramount Global, the owners of South Park, as well as the ongoing streaming issues. I mean, the show vanished from Paramount Plus at this point and the HBO Max contract was going to expire, so if the season did release, where was it even going to go? Matt and Trey responded to this by stating, "This merger is a shit show and it's fucking up South Park. We are at the studio working on new episodes and we hope the fans get to see them somehow." The season would then premiere on July 23rd to great success, with episodes streaming on Paramount Plus the day after they aired. But this wasn't the end of the issues, as the next episode did not premiere the following week like it had been doing for every season prior. Instead, episodes would be releasing every 2 weeks now. So the second episode would release August 6th, and then the next episode released August 20th. The fourth released September 3rd, and the next one should have released September 17th, but it was announced that the episode would be delayed and released September 24th instead, with the reason given being that they just couldn't get it done in time. Now, logically, that would make sense. I mean, if you're making an entire episode in 6 days, you're bound to run out of time at least once, right? Well, one, they've only ever missed a deadline once before, and it wasn't for running out of time, it was due to a power cut. And two, they now had 2 weeks to finish it as opposed to 1. This made fans skeptical, with some theorizing that the episode was actually finished and just banned from airing. This episode would have been the first one following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was parodied in the second episode of the season, Got a Nut. So fans speculated that the episode was originally about Charlie Kirk and was pulled for fear of backlash. However, Matt Stone responded to this by saying, "No one pulled the episode, no one censored us, and you know we'd say so if true." Which, I mean, given the whole Scientology thing from earlier, I'd imagine if this was censored we'd know about it. The release dates for the remaining 5 episodes were also revealed, with it going to be 3 more weeks for the next episode and then back to 2 weeks from that point. But the issues don't stop here, as after season 27 episode 5, TV schedules began showing that season 28 episode 1 would be releasing October 15th instead of season 27 episode 6 like you'd expect. Now, many fans, including me, assumed this was a glitch, but when the episode aired, it was in fact just a new season. Now, the reason for this wasn't publicly revealed, but fans speculated that it was done to make up for the year they missed when season 27 should have released. This way, there has been 28 seasons in 28 years, and season 30 will be during the series' 30th anniversary. Then season 28 episode 2 was supposed to release October 29th, 2025, but got pushed back 2 days to October 31st. And that was the last of the issues, I hope. The 3 other episodes aren't actually out yet for me, but they are for you, so hopefully it went okay. Kenny intro lines. So as you probably know, every time Kenny speaks, he is actually saying lines. They're just really muffled and therefore hard to make out. But if you listen closely, you can understand him. So because of how hard it is to make out what he's saying, Matt and Trey decided to make his lines in the intro incredibly vulgar, since no one would understand it and it wouldn't even need to be censored. So for the first theme song in seasons 1 to 3, Kenny's line was, "I like girls with deep vaginas, I like girls with big fat titties." Then, seasons 4 to 5 had, "Hey, I've got a 10-inch penis, use your mouth if you want to clean it." Season 6 had him replaced with Timmy since he was killed off the season prior, and season 7 to the first half of 10 had him say, "Someday I'll be old enough to stick my dick up Britney's butt." And finally, the second half of season 10 up until now had him say, "I like fucking silly bitches cause I know my penis likes it." Also, once you know this, you'll never be able to unhear it. Unhooded Kenny. Kenny is usually only seen wearing his orange parka, with his hood up, meaning we don't get to see his face often. Originally, he was only seen like this, and he wouldn't actually be seen unhooded up until the release of South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, where, at the end of the film, he removed his hood for the first time. Since then, he has appeared unhooded and unmuffled a few times throughout the show, most notably as Mysterion in the Coon and Friends episodes, where, I guess he still has a hood, so I don't know if it's really unhooded, but he is unmuffled, and his most recent unhooded appearance was in season 26's Dick and Mole's Hot Dogs. Birthdays. So, many of the characters have had their official birthdays revealed throughout the series. Cartman is July 1st, Randy is March 1st, Stan is October 19th, the same as Trey Parker, Kyle is May 26th, the same as Matt Stone, Kenny is March 22nd, Clyde is April 10th, Ike is December 17th, Shelly is November 24th, and Butters is September 11th, because of course it is. Also, Jesus is December 25th. Dubs. So, with South Park being as big a show as it is, it has obviously been dubbed into many different languages over the years. In total, it has been at least partially dubbed into 15 different languages, these being Albanian, which is an unlicensed and likely illegal dub, Cantonese, which only lasted for seasons 1 to 4, Czech, French, German, Hungarian, Irish, which lasted for the first 12 seasons until TG4, the channel airing it and responsible for the dub, lost the license, Italian, Japanese, Mandarin, which lasted for the first 7 seasons, Polish, Portuguese, Spanish, Turkish, and Ukrainian. It has also received voiceovers in 5 languages and is subtitled in 27 languages. And that was Layer 2. Layer 3 now, which has significantly more entries than Layers 1 and 2, so...
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
Fortnite. So, apparently, they're gonna add South Park to Fortnite. This hasn't been officially confirmed or denied by Epic Games, but people are saying it, so... References in other media. South Park has been referenced in many different pieces of media over the years, which makes sense given its popularity. These range from shows made for kids to ones made for adults. Covering every reference ever would be near impossible and also take ages, so I'll go over a few notable ones. The Simpsons has referenced South Park multiple times throughout their run. The most notable examples are in season 14's The Bart of War, where Bart and Milhouse watch the series, in season 21's Oh Brother Where Bart Thou, where Bart, Milhouse, Ralph and Nelson appear dressed as Stan, Kyle, Kenny and Cartman next to the bus stop, with Ralph being hit by Otto driving the bus, causing him to exclaim, "Oh my god, I killed Kenny!" In season 21's The Squirt and the Whale, the chalkboard gag has Bart write, "South Park, we'd stand beside you if we weren't so scared," which was referencing the at the time recent threats towards Matt and Trey over the planned depiction of Muhammad in 201. And the couch gag in season 28's The Cat in the Hat sees Homer travel to various different shows, with one being South Park. A season 4 episode of the PBS kids show Arthur, called The Contest, parodies the art style of the series during one segment that also featured aliens, similar to Cartman Gets an Anal Probe. The season 6 iCarly episode, I Bust a Thief, features a cartoon in a similar style to South Park, where Sam bites off Freddy's arm, and Blossom appears dressed as Cartman after falling into a pile of clothes in an episode of The Powerpuff Girls. In the Family Guy season 16 episode, V is for Mystery, Kenny appears dead during a title card, and in Family Guy Through the Years from the same season, Peter says,
Family Guy has survived 19 cancellations, 2 assassination attempts, and a pretty good ribbon by those South Park guys,
in response to the previously mentioned cartoon wars. Mormons. Mormons are a religious and cultural group related to Mormonism who have been referenced many times in South Park, and also some of Matt and Trey's other works. The most notable South Park reference to Mormons is the Season 7 episode All About Mormons, which is, well, all about Mormons. In the episode, a new kid named Gary joins South Park Elementary. He is really polite and nice to everyone, and so naturally, everyone fucking hates him, with them getting Stan to go beat him up. As Stan approaches him, Gary ends up being so nice he convinces Stan to come over to his house for dinner. Stan does so, and we meet the rest of his family, who are all also super nice and wholesome. The family do many activities, with the final one being reading the Book of Mormon. This piques Stan's curiosity, and so he asks about the book, where the family then explain the story of how the religion came to be. So, there was a man in the early 1800s named Joseph Smith, who claimed he spoke to God and Jesus, and asked them if he should be a Protestant or a Catholic, and they told him he should start his own church, because none of the others had it right. Then one night, Joseph Smith was greeted by the angel Moroni, who was a Native American, who revealed there was an ancient book written on gold plates buried near his home, and that if he dug it up, he'd be able to translate it with the 2 seer stones also buried with the book. Anyway, partway through the story, the family's Rice Krispie squares finish baking, and Stan goes home due to the time. Once he arrives home, he asks Randy why he never told him about Joseph Smith. From this, Randy assumes the family was attempting to brainwash Stan, and so he goes over to their house to beat up the dad. But, much like Stan earlier in the episode, is stopped by their niceness and ends up asking about Joseph Smith too. This continues the story, where the family explain how Joseph Smith claimed to have found the golden plates, which contained another New Testament of Jesus. A man asks where these supposed golden plates are, to which Joseph explains that the angel Moroni told him no one is allowed to see the plates except for him, because he must translate them into English using the seer stones. The story pauses again, as Randy returns home and explains they're gonna be having the Harrison family over for dinner the following evening. He also converts the Marshes to Mormonism, after seeing how nice and happy the Harrisons are. Then the following day, Stan ends up talking to Gary again, where he asks more questions about Joseph Smith. Gary goes on to explain how Joseph Smith got a man named Martin Harris to transcribe the contents of the plates, as he read them out from a hat using the seer stones. The episode then cuts to the Marsh's house, where the Harrisons arrive, and they end up continuing the story. Martin Harris went home to his wife Lucy Harris, and told her about what happened, where she questions how he knows Joseph wasn't just making it all up. Now, this entire time, during these scenes of Joseph Smith's story, a song was playing in the background that sounded like this.
Joseph Smith was called a prophet, dum 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 dum.
Now, when Lucy Harris questions Joseph Smith, it switches to this.
Lucy Harris, smart, 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 smart.
Revealing that the song was actually commenting on the story the whole time. Anyway, to prove Joseph is telling the truth, Lucy Harris hides the writings, stating that if he was telling the truth, he'd be able to rewrite it from the plates. After Martin told Joseph about this, he said God was angry with him, and so they'd have to now translate from the plate of Nephi as opposed to the previous plate of Lehi, meaning the story will pretty much be the same, but worded differently. And so, that's how the book came to be. This leads Stan to call out how Joseph Smith obviously made the whole thing up, pointing to the story they told for proof. He then crashes out on the Harrisons as he's sick of them being so positive all the time, and they leave. Finally, the following day, the boys are waiting at the bus stop, where Gary comes up to Stan and tells him that even if Joseph Smith did make it all up, the Book of Mormon has given him a great happy life and family, and so he's happy for that and doesn't care if it's true or not. And then he says,
All I ever did was try to be your friend, Stan. But you're so high and mighty you couldn't look past my religion and just be my friend back. You got a lot of growing up to do, buddy. Suck my balls.
So basically, the message is that even though the story is definitely fake, it teaches people to be nice, helpful, and love people. And all the Mormon people are happy and polite, so who cares? Now, this isn't Matt and Trey's only creation involving Mormons, as they've also created the film Orgasmo in 1997, which follows a Mormon missionary who ends up acting in a porno in order to pay for his and his fiance's dream wedding and house. And the two also made the Broadway musical The Book of Mormon, which released in 2011 and follows 2 Mormons who are sent on their 2-year mission to spread the word about God and are sent to Uganda. It's a good musical. I've now seen it 6 times. It's quite good. You should watch it. Banned in countries. South Park has shockingly been banned in multiple countries. Who could have guessed that some places wouldn't like this? So let's cover them all. Firstly, in 2010, South Park was banned in India, with the reason being that it featured offensive content. However, it was later unbanned and available to stream on Netflix on May 14th, 2020. Now, in Iraq, the movie was banned due to the fact it featured Saddam Hussein, who was the Prime Minister of Iraq at the time, in a gay relationship with Satan. Kuwait has banned the series due to its numerous jokes about Muslims. China banned banned the series in 2019 following the release of the season 23 episode, Banned in China, in which Randy goes to China to try sell weed and is thrown into a Chinese prison. Now, that sounds weird if you know anything about China and its censorship. Like, it has some pretty strict laws surrounding that stuff, so you'd be shocked to hear South Park wasn't banned until 2019. Well, the reason behind that is that it was never actually released in China officially, because there was no point even trying really. So they never banned it because, I mean, they didn't have it. But then, this episode made them ban any mention of it anywhere, as some mentions of it had crept into places on the Chinese internet. The show was also banned in Romania in 2000, but would return in 2008, and Sri Lanka banned the series in 2010, following the episodes 200 and 201, which featured Buddha snorting cocaine. Now that was all the countries it's banned. The list only consists of countries where the show has actually been somewhat released, as there are many countries where it probably would be banned if they tried releasing it, but it hasn't been because they just haven't tried to release it. Like, North Korea wasn't on the list, but I mean, they probably wouldn't like it. Pip. Pip was an English boy who used to be part of the 4th grade class and appeared many times during the earlier seasons of the show. He was always a polite, nice fellow and was often made fun of by all the boys. He was based off the character of the same name from Charles Dickens' novel Great Expectations. Pip would slowly appear less and less and fade into obscurity, as his role in the show was replaced by Butters. He stopped appearing at all until in season 14's 201, he is killed when he is crushed by Mecha Streisand. He also had an entire episode about him in season 4. Response from the White House. So this one happened fairly recently as of recording. On July 23rd, 2025, Season 27 premiered with the episode Sermon on the Mount, which heavily featured and made fun of US President Donald Trump. They showed him as having a tiny penis and threatening to sue anyone who made fun of him. They also compared him to Saddam Hussein by animating him in the same way, giving him the same voice, and having him be in a relationship with Satan, who states that he is exactly like this other guy he used to date, obviously being Saddam. The episode itself followed the town of South Park being pissed off at the president for not doing anything good, and just arresting and suing people, as well as pushing Christianity in schools whilst acting incredibly unchristian himself, with Jesus literally being put into South Park Elementary, and so the town's residents end up protesting against the president, who threatens to sue them for $5 billion. As they protest, Jesus comes down and reveals he didn't want to come back to the school, but had to as a part of an agreement from a lawsuit. He then goes on to warn them that what they're doing is stupid and that the town is at risk of cancellation from the president, similar to what happened with The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which is also owned by Paramount, who owns South Park. So, for some context, back at the start of July, Paramount agreed to pay Donald Trump $16 million to settle a lawsuit regarding an allegedly deceptively edited interview with Kamala Harris that had aired on 60 Minutes. They would also be giving him $20 million in advertising, PSAs, or similar programming. The theorized reason for this being that Paramount was attempting to merge with Skydance, and for this merger to go ahead, they'd need approval from the FCC, which is now managed by the Trump administration. So if Trump was pissed at Paramount, then it could affect the merger, and so by folding to the demands of Trump, they'll be in his good books. But then, Stephen Colbert calls out this move on his show. He has also been very critical of Trump in the past, and then Paramount cancelled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, despite it being the highest rated American late night talk show and having recently been renewed up until 2026. So, seems odd they'd cancel such a seemingly successful show. So, South Park essentially did this episode as a big fuck you to both Paramount and Trump, since they went way harder on Trump than Colbert ever did. This was also actively as the merger was happening. So, when Jesus says that Paramount owns The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and that the town of South Park could be cancelled, he's actually referring to the actual show. However, Paramount had just paid $1.5 billion for 50 new episodes, and so they were in a tough position, where cancelling South Park would be stupid because it's so popular and makes loads of money, and they also just paid $1.5 billion for it. Anyway, back to the episode. It ends with the town giving in and settling their lawsuit with the president for $3.5 million, and also agreeing to do pro-Trump messaging, obviously referencing their previously mentioned 60 Minutes lawsuit. So they do this pro-Trump messaging by making a video where they sarcastically say how great Trump is, whilst having him walking through the desert and stripping naked, and it's also live action as well, with him lying down and having his tiny penis come out and say, "I'm Donald J. Trump and I endorse this message," and the narrator stating,
"Trump, his penis is teeny tiny, but his love for us is large."
at the end. So anyway, how did the White House respond to this? Because that's what this entry is about. Well, firstly, before any official statement, an administration source reported to Deadline Hollywood that Trump was, quote, seething over the childish attack by South Park. Then on July 24th, the White House Assistant Press Secretary issued an official response to the episode that reads, "The left's hypocrisy truly has no end. For years, they have come after South Park for what they labelled as offence content, but suddenly they are praising the show. Just like the creators of South Park, the left has no authentic or original content, which is why their popularity continues to hit record lows. This show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years and is hanging on by a thread with uninspired ideas in a desperate attempt for attention. President Trump has delivered on more promises in just 6 months than any other president in our country's history, and no fourth-rate show can derail President Trump's hot streak." South Park would directly reference this statement after Homeland Security's official Twitter account tweeted a sign-up link with a screenshot from the second episode of the season, Got a Nut, which heavily featured Ice, with the South Park Twitter account quote tweeting it and stating, "Wait, so we are relevant? Hashtag eat a bag of dicks," which garnered 477,000 likes. The timeline's actually crazy, bro. They responded to a cartoon making fun of them. Real towns. So there is multiple real places with the name South Park all across the US, the most notable of which is South Park in Park County, Colorado, which is 40 miles away from Conifer, where Trey Parker grew up. According to Matt and Trey, the area was well known in Colorado for its supernatural tales, alien abduction stories, and UFO conspiracies, which ended up inspiring some elements of the series in its earlier years, you know, like the pilot, which is all about aliens. And looking at the place, it does appear to be a quiet little mountain town. There is also now various references to the series around the town. Man-Bear Pig. Man-Bear Pig is a demon from hell who, as Al Gore states in the episode of the same name, is half man, half bear, and half pig. He's essentially a stand-in for global warming, with the season 10 episode following Al Gore attempting to warn everyone about the threat of Man-Bear Pig, with no one believing him. Al Gore at the time was warning people of the threat of global warming, which many people thought he made up. Man-Bear Pig would later return in the Imagination Land episodes as one of the fictional things in Imagination Land. But then, over the years, it became apparent global warming does in fact exist, and this puts South Park in a pretty tough spot. Since Man-Bear Pig was the stand-in for global warming, it meant Man-Bear Pig was now real. They tackled this in season 22's Time to Get Cereal and Nobody Got Cereal, in which Man-Bear Pig is seen to be real and starts killing people. The boys actually apologise to Al Gore for not believing him, which is essentially the show apologising to him, which is interesting to see as I don't think it's ever been done before, and they ask for his help to defeat Man-Bear Pig. Man-Bear Pig wants everyone to give up Red Dead Redemption 2 and soy sauce, and if the townspeople do, he will go away. But they can't, and so the new agreement they make with Man-Bear Pig is to ignore him for 5 more years, where he'll then come back and the carnage will be bigger than ever. Now, this episode aired in 2018. He would return in the Streaming Wars, which was in 2022, so 4 years later rather than 5, but still. In this, he's working for PP of PP's Urine World, and helping with his attempt to sell pee to the city once all the water runs out, until he turns on him at the end after it is revealed he was attempting to control climate change by, quote, fucking its mum. He then beheads PP. Animation errors. So, like with any animated series, South Park has had animation errors in the past, which I mean makes sense. Something's bound to be messed up if you're animating the whole thing in 6 days. These don't happen that often and aren't actually that noticeable, but they did happen quite a lot more in the earlier years and were more apparent. Like, look at Pip's eyes in this scene from episode 10. What happened there? Gingers. This is referencing the season 9 episode Ginger Kids, in which Cartman hates on ginger kids and calls them creepy and gross, fairly standard Cartman behaviour. Now, what's notable about this episode is that it seemingly contributed to the amount of hatred towards ginger people from kids in the real world, because kids are fucking stupid and don't understand that Eric Cartman isn't someone you should be looking up to. This episode supposedly led to the creation of an event called Kick a Ginger Day 3 years later, that would take place on November 20th, 2008. It started as a Facebook group, which garnered many members and actually led to some reports of ginger people being assaulted on that day. And this wasn't the only Kick a Ginger Day event, as there was a second and third one in 2013 and 2015. So, whilst it's not the show's fault, this episode definitely contributed somewhat to ginger people being made fun of in the real world. Awards. So given the fact that South Park is so critically acclaimed and has been running for so long, it's no surprise they've won many awards over the years. The series has won 5 Emmys, 1 Annie Award, 1 Peabody Award, and more, with the film being nominated for the Best Original Song Oscar for the song Blame Canada, but ultimately losing to You'll Be in My Heart by Phil Collins from Tarzan. Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls. Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls is a Season 2 episode that originally premiered on August 19th, 1998. The episode is notable for featuring the song Chocolate Salty Balls, which was Chef singing about the chocolate salty balls he was selling, with the entire thing being an innuendo for testicles. The song would later receive a full version that would be included on the Chef Aid album, and also released as a single on December 14th, 1998. This song was incredibly successful. Most notably, it became number 1 on the UK singles chart for the week of the 27th of December 1998 to the 2nd of January 1999. It also performed well in other countries, becoming number 4 in Denmark, number 5 in Norway, number 6 in the Netherlands, and number 7 in Europe as a whole. Tweek and Craig fan art. So there was a surprising amount of fan art depicting Tweek and Craig in a gay relationship together, and this was before it was in the show, by the way. This art was first discovered by one of the people working on the Fractured But Whole, who was looking up references for Tweek for the game. They then decided to show this art to Matt and Trey, which then led to the creation of Season 19's Tweek x Craig, which was about the Asian girls of South Park Elementary drawing yaoi art of Tweek and Craig. And this episode actually featured a lot of real fan art of the two. A request was put up on the South Park Studios website on October 25th, 2015 that read, "Hey South Park fans, South Park is looking for fan artwork to include in this week's episode. Specifics //yaoi/Tweek plus Craig only." So for any of you who are into this, submit by this Monday, October 26th at 6 PM Pacific time, and tune in Wednesday night to see if your art made it into the show. We will try to use as much as we can, and watching the episode you can see lots of the different fan art in the show. I also like how some of the pictures are just really compressed, and Tweek and Craig would end up becoming an official couple in the show. The butterfly effect is crazy. U2s. U2s is a Canadian company that creates vinyl figures for various properties and also internet personalities. They started releasing South Park figures in 2022, and since then have created a total of 28 different figures that sell for $29.99 each, with them also making 2 nightlights and 16 plushies for the series. It Hits the Fan. It Hits the Fan is the premiere episode of Season 5 of the series, and is notable for using the word shit 200 times, with 162 spoken uses and 38 visual occurrences. Doing some quick math, for a 22-minute episode, having 200 appearances means it appeared on average every 6.6 seconds. And there was actually a reason this was done. So originally, Matt and Trey wanted to use the word uncensored only a few times in the episode. This came following the series NYPD Blue using the word shit uncensored, and Matt and Trey wanted to make fun of the public's reaction to this, with people deciding it was okay because it was used in a serious show in a bold and artistic way. And they didn't like how it was okay for a serious show to use it uncensored, but a comedy series couldn't, as was revealed on the mini commentary for the episode. However, Comedy Central refused to have it uncensored, leading to Matt and Trey asking if they could say it as much as physically possible in the episode so that it loses all meaning, and they're therefore making some kind of a statement and message about it, to which, surprisingly, Comedy Central agreed, and so the episode aired with the word being said uncensored 162 times, which surprisingly didn't result in any major backlash. Guest stars. So there have been multiple guest stars throughout South Park. Initially, when it blew up in popularity, many celebrities wanted to be in it, with them reaching out to guest star. Matt and Trey, having the views on celebrities they do, would offer these celebrities the funniest, worst roles possible in the episode. This led to such guest voices as George Clooney voicing Sparky, who is Stan's dog, where he had to provide the barking sounds, and Jay Leno playing Mr. Kitty, where he had to meow. Jerry Seinfeld also reached out to voice in the series, where he was offered the role of Turkey Number 2, to which he declined. Early merch. When South Park initially released and became a huge success, there was lots of merch released for it, like there is for any successful series. They had t-shirts, hats, mugs, plushies, the previously mentioned video games and albums, and all kinds of various little figures and collectibles. But also, interestingly, stuff seemingly targeted towards kids, which is odd given the show's content, but I mean, it makes sense I guess. Kids were definitely big fans of the show whether they were meant to be watching it or not. They would release a sticker book based on the series, which I mean, seems pretty targeted at kids. They also made those like tin lunchboxes for the show. International airings. This entry is simply referring to the channels that air South Park across the world. So currently, in the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Poland, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Brazil, Spain, and Latin America, the series airs on Comedy Central. The Cantonese version used to air on the iCable Family Entertainment channel, the Czech dub used to air on the Paramount Network in the Czech Republic, another French dub used to air on a channel simply known as V, the Irish dub aired on TG4, as mentioned prior, a second Italian dub aired on the Italian free-to-air channel, Italia 1, the Japanese dub had aired on WoW, Fox, MTV, and AXN, the Mandarin dub had aired on Channel V and Fox Movies, the Turkish dub had aired on CNBCE, and the Ukrainian dub had aired on MTV, QTV, and NLO TV. Bootleg merch. So, obviously, when anything becomes even remotely popular, people will attempt to profit off of it, whether that be through something legal like making a video about the popular thing, or through some more shady methods like creating bootleg merch without the knowledge of the copyright holders. And with South Park being as popular as it is, obviously lots of bootleg products have been released over the years. Examples include this backpack that has the boys on it, with them being all differently coloured than usual for some reason. I'd assume to get around copyright, but like, that just wouldn't work, and it just makes the product look like a bootleg, which I mean it is, but if you were the guy or girl making this, you probably wouldn't want it to. Also, it just has the Simpsons logo at the top for some reason. Or how about these plushies of all our favourite characters, Top Kid, Wild Kid, Boss Kid, and Main Kid, who I assume are Kyle, Kenny, I have no idea, and Stan. Or what about this air hockey table that for some reason has drawings of the 4 boys on the side, which is weird because it's not like it's outright South Park themed, and they're not drawn in the South Park style, so it could be that the designer just thought this drawing looked cool without knowing the characters. Also, this thing must have sold decently as there's loads of pictures of it in many different places. Okay, update, it seems like my theory was actually correct because the original artwork was found and it comes from DeviantArt from a user called Conquer N Crash, so I assume it was just taken by the designer. Anyway, there's very little information on bootleg products, which makes sense given the nature of their existence. Like, making these is illegal, so I can't imagine the creators would want any info about it anywhere. Change names. Many South Park characters have had their names changed over the years, especially characters that didn't really have a substantial role in earlier seasons or characters that don't appear often. This is because South Park has such a large cast of characters and is made with such a fast-paced production schedule that the people working on the show just forgot they gave some less significant characters names, especially last names already. And so, think of new ones, because it's kinda unlikely you'll remember you gave a random side character a last name already 4 seasons ago. Or alternatively, in some cases they just didn't like the name, so changed it. Some changed names include Cartman, who, as mentioned before, was originally called Kenny, Clyde, who is currently known as Clyde Donovan, but was previously referred to as Clyde Goodman and Clyde Harris, Jimmy, who is currently Jimmy Vollmer, but was originally Jimmy Swanson, but is his mother, who was once called Carol, but was later changed to Linda, Red, who has previously been called Bertha and Rebecca, Sharon, who was previously Carol. Also, not really what the entry is referring to, but I thought I'd mention Sharon's original last name was Kimball prior to her marrying Randy, but as his dad, who is currently known as Stephen Stotch but was once Chris, and the most interesting case, Tolkien Black, who was originally Token Black. This one's interesting as it was deliberate, with them changing it with the episode The Big Fix, in which Stan and Randy find out Tolkien's name is Tolkien, after thinking it was Token the entire time, with him being named after the writer J.R.R. Tolkien. This news horrifies Stan, as he had assumed it was Token Black, which if you don't know, a Token Black refers to a black character in a piece of media who serves only to provide a sense of diversity. So his name was a pun by Matt and Trey since he's the only black kid in the class. This made Stan think he was racist for just assuming the only black kid in the class was called Token Black. And they did some funny stuff following this episode. When it was established that his name was in fact Tolkien the whole time, they changed any prior mention of him in episode descriptions and even the subtitles for the show to Tolkien. However, whenever Randy or Stan said his name, they kept it as Token, as they both thought it was Token, as was shown in the episode. It's actually hilarious they went through all that effort to gaslight people into thinking it was Tolkien the whole time. Got a nut pulled. Got a Nut is the second episode of season 27. It follows Mr. Mackey losing his job and having to join ICE. And, more importantly for this entry, it sees Cartman becoming a right-wing podcaster who debates people on political issues. Cartman's appearance and actions throughout the episode were supposed to parody Charlie Kirk, who was also right-wing and would debate people on political issues. This episode aired on August 6, 2025, and as you probably know, just over a month later on September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk Iceberg was assassinated whilst on stage at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Immediately following this, the South Park episode was pulled from syndication for obvious reasons, with its last airing having been on September 8th, 2025. It was originally supposed to be re-aired on the same day he would end up dying at 9 PM, but it was obviously pulled and instead replaced with an airing of Sermon on the Mount. Now, this episode wasn't in the banned episodes entry as it's not really banned, it's just pulled from airing on TV. You can still stream it on Paramount Plus and buy it on digital storefronts. Funko Pops. Okay, so everyone knows what Funko Pops are. They're very similar to U2s in that they're collectible vinyl figures, except Funko Pops are much cheaper than U2s in both price and quality, with a Funko Pop costing $15, about half that of a U2's. Funko have made Funko Pops for like hundreds if not thousands of properties, with South Park obviously being one of them, and they've made a ton of South Park Funko Pops. In total, they've made 55 different South Park Funko Pops as of right now. On top of this, there's keychain variants of some. Funko also do other South Park products, like these backpacks. Commentaries. This is referring to the mini-episode commentaries done by Matt and Trey for the DVD releases of the series as bonus features. Essentially, they'd talk about the episode and how it was made and stuff for a few minutes, which is interesting as other shows would usually talk the whole episode. However, Matt and Trey only talk for a few minutes, with them actually giving a reason for this on one of the commentaries, where they said they just don't have that much to say.
I want to remind everyone we still do the commentary minis.
Because we really don't have that much to say about our work.
So as not to bore you, we do commentary minis.
They actually did these for a surprising amount of time, even with the decline in DVD sales where bonus features such as commentaries began to be removed. The last season to have these commentaries, for now and, well, realistically probably ever, was season 22, which released all the way in May of 2019. Deleted scenes. Like with any series, South Park has deleted scenes from some episodes, with the reason they're deleted varying from like being cut for time or because it just doesn't really fit the episode anymore. These deleted scenes would be released as bonus features on the DVDs, starting with season 13 and then ending with season 22, which as of right now is the last season to include deleted scenes. Also, there was none on the season 21 set. If you want to watch these today, you can either get these DVDs or just watch them on YouTube as they've all been posted there. Fake Season 27 trailer. So on April 2nd, 2025, a teaser was released for South Park Season 27, which seemingly contained various clips from upcoming episodes. We had scenes of Butters as an air traffic control worker and Kyle as a chicken that looked like they came from episodes. This confused much of the South Park community, given that episodes are usually made the week they're meant to air, but this trailer implied that the entire season was already done, yet wouldn't release for 3 months, which means all the real-world events referenced in this trailer would be irrelevant by the time it aired. Anyway, when the season did premiere, the first episode did in fact reference recent events, and none of it appeared in this trailer, which led a fan to ask Matt and Trey about this at San Diego Comic-Con, to which Trey explained that they were asked to make a promo for the upcoming season, and so just made a bunch of stuff up because they obviously had no footage.
Back in like February, right, we made they're like, oh, we need to do a promo for the summer. And we're like, what? Like, I don't know what we're going to do this summer. And they're like, no, we need to make a promo, announce that shows are going to come back. And we made a promo. We did this thing. South Park's coming back this night, and it showed a whole bunch of clips. We made it all up just for the promo. Like, and everybody was like, everyone was going, oh man, those guys, they used to do, now they're just front loading shows. They're not going to be topical anymore. It's like, you seriously think we went and made a bunch of shows ahead of time and we're like banking them for later? Like, we've never done that.
Conventions. This is referring to the various conventions that the series has appeared at, with Matt and Trey answering questions from fans, most notably Comic-Con, where there is usually some sort of big South Park display. Censorship. South Park has suffered a lot from censorship over its run, and Matt and Trey aren't big fans of censorship. There's obviously notably the Muhammad thing and the Closetgate incident already mentioned, but then there's other stuff like curse words being bleeped on TV, or some edits being made to the series in other countries, like when the UK airing of the episode Cartman Land cut the scene where Kenny gets impaled by the pole for some reason. There's also probably some cut stuff we just don't know about. And that concludes Layer 3. We're truly going to be going into obscure territory now. Real-life cheesy poofs. Cheesy poofs are a fictional snack that exist in South Park, and they're one of Cartman's favourite foods. They've been seen multiple times throughout the show, and they would even be made into a real product you could purchase twice. Firstly, in 1998, when they released them on the Comedy Central website to buy. These ones resemble the one from the show the most, with them trying to mimic the exact look of the box. The second release had them team up with Frito-Lay to make limited edition bags of Cheesy Poofs, which were first released at San Diego Comic-Con, but then became available in Walmart for a 2-week period in September. This variant is just repackaged Cheetos Puffs. 3D renders. This entry is referring to the many fan-made 3D renders of the characters, mostly from the early 2000s. There's lots of these out there, with some recreating specific scenes from the show and others just being parodies of things, as well as just general images. These all look cool and have a certain charm to them I can't put into words. Like, they look like old 3D renders because, I mean they are, and they're not as polished as stuff today, but I think if they were, it'd look worse. Like, it's good because it's less polished, which I guess is similar to the show itself actually. If you're able to word what I'm trying to say better, comment down below. Block 13. Block 13 is an animated series from Kuwait that began December 12, 2000. This date is notable as it's the same year that South Park was banned in Kuwait, and this was made as an unlicensed Arabic adaptation of the series that was more family friendly, and intended to act as the replacement for the original. You'll immediately notice that the art style is pretty much the same as South Park, and also that the main 4 characters bear a very close resemblance to Cartman, Kyle, Stan, and Kenny. The series was made by a man named Nawaf Salam Al-Shamari and would air on Kuwait Television, which is Kuwait's official state-run TV station. It is notably aired during Ramadan. The series lasted for 3 seasons and had a total of 45 episodes, with it ending on December 5th, 2002. It was re-aired in 2020 for Ramadan, and since then has been re-aired each Ramadan. As for what the series is actually about, it follows Hamoud, Azuz, Saloom, Honey, Aboud, and his little sister Farouk, who go on many wacky misadventures. Whoa. And for these characters, much like South Park, they edited the voices, except here it sounds awful. Here's some footage of what it sounds like.
لا تلومونا يا جماعة متأكد اسمه توفيق توفيق عبد المعطي توفيق.
They kinda did too much to the voices and it doesn't sound good. They should have just pitched it up a little like South Park. Also similar to South Park, they'd comment on issues, with them commenting on issues that would be relevant to the Middle Eastern people. The show was actually fairly successful and would receive a surprising amount of merchandise, like there was plushes, notebooks, erasers, pencils, stickers, a colouring book, bags, and more. It even had home media releases. Anyone want to see the wacky world of Block 13's home media releases? The show would actually receive a reboot in 2022, in the form of the series 13th Street, which actually kinda drops the South Park style, and there's very limited info on this reboot series online. Also, you know this song? Like the one I played in the intro for this segment? That came from Block 13. VHS openings. So the old VHS and DVD releases for the series would feature openings where Matt and Trey talk about the episode and other stuff for 1 or 2 minutes before the episode starts. Some of these are quite funny, like how the ones known as fireside chats feature them sat in front of a fireplace with a dog who keeps changing every time the camera's off him. If you want to watch these intros, they've been uploaded to YouTube.
So, are you guys as anti-Semitic as some might believe?
You know, a lot of people have accused South Park of anti-Semitism, but I'm Jewish and proud of my heritage. And so I can say with some certainty that I am not anti-Semitic.
I am, however.
Yellow eye plushes. So, for whatever reason, there have been many cases of old South Park plushes having their eyes turn yellow. This specifically happens to the plushes made by the company Fun for All, who produced an absolute ton of plushes between 1998 and 2004. Following 2004, it switched hands to the Commonwealth Company, who already owned Fun for All, and made a few more plushes in 2005 before stopping. This issue most commonly seems to happen to Cartman plushes, with it rarely happening to other characters. The exact reason this happens isn't really known, but it's probably just because they're old. The oldest of these plushes now will be 27 years old, and I mean, if you store these in like a cold, dusty, moist attic for like 2.5 decades, then these nice white eyes will get dirty and moist and just become like this, I guess. It does definitely seem like an issue with how they're stored, as there are plushes today that have seemingly been stored well and thus have white eyes still. There's probably materials where this yellowing won't happen, but I guess Fun for All wasn't thinking about what these plushes would look like 27 years later when designing them. Mary Kay Bergman. Mary Kay Bergman was a voice actress who provided the voice for many female characters in the series in its early years. Some notable characters she voiced are Leanne Cartman, Principal Victoria, Sheila Broflovski, Sharon Marsh, and Wendy. She would tragically take her own life on November 11th, 1999 via a self-inflicted gunshot to the head at the age of just 38. The show would do a tribute to her at the end of season 3's Mr. Hankey's Christmas Classics, where the song Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is sung by the entire cast, whilst a montage of the characters she voiced plays, before they then come on screen alongside Stan and Kyle. Sex change footage. In the episode Mr. Garrison's Fancy New Vagina from season 9, Mr. Garrison has a sex change operation, and during this scene, they actually showed real footage of a male to female sex change operation, with the footage coming from the 1978 documentary Let Me Die a Woman. The footage is only shown for like a few seconds, but it's very graphic and quite grim to look at. And what's worse is they originally wanted the footage to be shown for 5 fucking minutes, but Comedy Central said no, because why would they ever agree to show operation footage on their channel for 5 minutes? I'm surprised this even made it to air as is. Cartman gets an anal probe uncut. The original version of Cartman Gets an Anal Probe, referred to as the unaired pilot, was completed in November of 1996 and had a runtime of 28 minutes. The reason for this being that Matt and Trey were making it for a half-hour TV spot, but didn't realise that that meant it had to be 22 minutes as opposed to closer to 30 due to commercials needing to be aired during the 30-minute period, and thus the episode was cut down to 22 minutes when it officially premiered on August 13th, 1997. This original version of the pilot remained unreleased for many years, until it was available on DVD as a bonus for those who pre-ordered the complete second season DVD at Best Buy in 2003. It was also available on the South Park Studios website briefly between August and September of 2009. If you want to watch it now, it's really easy to find online. Cartman's sister and dad. So one of the scenes cut from the original 28-minute unaired pilot showed Cartman's family having dinner, with him having both a sister and a father, who don't speak in the episode. So originally, Cartman's family was supposed to consist of 4 people. However, after the series was picked up by Comedy Central, Matt and Trey decided to remove his dad and sister and have it just be him and his mum. The reason being that they decided Cartman did not need a large family. Tiger Woods 99. Tiger Woods 99 PGA Tour Golf was a video game released back in 1998 for both Windows and PlayStation, and the game is notable as, for the PlayStation version, on the first 100,000 copies printed, if you were to insert the disc into a computer and then go into the file stored on it, you'd find one titled ZZDummy.dat, which when selected would play a VHS recording of the second Spirit of Christmas short. This wouldn't be noticed for a couple of months until someone decided to actually look at the files on their copy of the game on a PC and discovered this, which led to EA issuing a recall for the affected copies. Now, this was quite bad for EA for multiple reasons. One, the game had a rating of E for everyone, meaning kids could purchase and play the game, and this short featured lots of swearing, which wouldn't fall under E for everyone. And 2, the short being on there could also be an issue for copyright concerns. But why actually was this short on the disc anyway? Well, the most likely reason was that whoever put it there didn't understand how to create dummy files. The game would require dummy files in order to fill the disc, and so to fill the disc, they just put this on there. 2000's Oscars. The song Blame Canada from South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut was nominated for the Best Original Song Award at the 72nd Academy Awards, and so Matt and Trey were invited to attend, but I mean, the Oscars is pretty much everything they're against with their views on celebrities and stuff, and so the two were thinking of something funny they could wear to the event. Initially, the ideas were to wear a costume, like a chicken or pirate outfit. However, they later had the idea to wear dresses, as that way there'd be no reason for them to not be let into the event, since loads of other people would be wearing dresses in it, but if they were in some goofy outfit, the Oscars could have a reason to not let them in. The dresses worn by the two were previously worn by Jennifer Lopez and Gwyneth Paltrow, and they didn't just wear dresses to the event, as prior to it, they also took acid, and so during the entire thing, they were under the influence of that. And if you actually watch clips of them at the event with that in mind, you can tell. Also, the song was performed at the event. 2000's titles. So you may have noticed that the first 4 episodes of Season 4's titles all end with 2000, and the reason for this was to parody the many movies and shows that came out around the year 2000 that would also end with 2000, since Season 4 was coming out in 2000. Hidden Visitors. The visitors are these guys, who are the aliens that gave Cartman the anal probe all the way back in the first episode of the series. Since the start of the show, it's been a long-running gag for them to be hidden in various places in the background of episodes. Here are some examples on screen. Look, they're here, and they're here. Some are easier to find than others, with there being a lot of them in like the first 13 seasons and then less from that point on, with them still being hidden in places occasionally even today. As of right now, the most recent hidden visitor was seen at Donald Trump's pool party in the season 27 episode Sermon on the Mount, so keep an eye out for these guys. About Last Night. About Last Night is a season 12 episode that followed Obama winning the 2008 presidential election. The episode itself is an Ocean's 11 parody and reveals Obama only became president as part of a plan to steal the Hope Diamond from the National Museum of Natural History. As opposed to making some statement about politics, they just made him a jewel thief, with Trey Parker stating as to why, quote, "We've all heard about everything, we've talked about everything to death, and it's like, let's just put him in a diamond heist movie. They're just diamond thieves and it's not about politics at all anymore." Now, this episode is especially notable due to it releasing the day following Obama being announced as winner, thus literally being about last night at the time of release. Which is quick even for South Park. The episode even included elements from Obama's speech from less than 24 hours earlier. So how did they do this if it takes 6 days to make an episode? Well, originally, they were going to make 2 episodes, one for if John McCain won and one for if Obama won. However, the team found this task too daunting due to the series' fast production schedule. Making 1 episode is hard, but doing 2 would be much harder, and it had become obvious to them that Obama would win the election, so they made the episode like usual, just assuming Obama would win, and they were right. The 2 had put in placeholder lines, where they'd later replace them with lines from Obama's real speech, and the day the episode was supposed to air, they finished up all the final touches and replaced these lines, and were able to send it off in time, although it was hours later than episodes are usually completed, but still on time. Following this, the episode was praised for how fast it was able to comment on the news, with James Hibbard of The Hollywood Reporter stating, "Trey Parker and Matt Stone have always turned around South Park episodes with impressive speed, but Wednesday night was ridiculous." Chef's side face. So, the side of Chef's face was never actually seen for the first 3.5 seasons. He was only ever seen looking forwards or backwards, but that changed with season 4's 4th grade, where his face was seen from the side for the first time ever. But even following this, he was rarely ever seen from the side, with the reason being he just probably didn't need to look to the side very often. Oh yeah, he's also briefly seen looking to the side in the pilot. Kyle Tolkien 23. Kyle Tolkien 23 is the name of the TikTok account Kyle and Tolkien made in the season 26 premiere episode Cupid Ye. And what's interesting about this is that this is a real TikTok account made by South Park. It only has 1 video, which is of the 2 dancing to the song Pretty Girls Walk by Big Boss Vet, which was seen in the episode. The account as of right now has amassed 976,000 followers, and its 1 video has 1.4 million likes. They never posted the other videos seen in the episode, but oh well. This is a cool little detail they added. 2016 remaster. So when South Park originally premiered, the standard aspect ratio for television content was 4:3, or this. However, in the late 2000s, it began to shift to 16:9, or this. And so South Park began to be broadcast in 16:9, starting with season 13. But this still left the older seasons in 4:3, meaning when they would be broadcast on TV, they'd have black bars on the side. However, because of the way South Park is made, being different to that of other animated shows, they still had all the old files for episodes and could go in and re-render them in HD, as well as widening the aspect ratio. And so, in April of 2015, the remastering project was begun at South Park Studios. JJ Franzen, the show's chief information officer, explained how this was possible in greater detail, stating, "We've always been digital pack rats, so we still have all the Maya, and before season 5, Alias Power Animator, scene files we used to create the show. Since HD has become a real possibility, we've started re-rendering all those old episodes at full 1080p, which also means reframing all the shots from standard 4:3 to full 16:9. It's very labor intensive, but it also means that we'll be the only animated show from the pre-HD world that will have its entire catalogue of episodes in full native 1080p. It's pretty sweet. These remastered episodes would be rolled out slowly until almost every episode was finally available in 16:9 full HD. I say almost every episode as Cartman Gets an Anal Probe is currently the only one still in 4:3, because it was the pilot and and was made by Matt and Trey with construction paper cutouts as opposed to computers, meaning they couldn't go in and remaster it. Kind of. See, they did actually release this in HD and also made a few changes to it, but this begs the question of why they didn't put it in widescreen if they seemingly went through the effort to change parts of it. Also, if you're wondering, they did in fact remaster the banned episodes, and they were released this way on the Blu-ray box sets of the seasons. As of right now, this HD version of the show is the version available to stream and the one aired on TV, and if you want to watch the OG 4x3 versions, the only legal way to do so is via the DVD or VHS releases. Jared Fogle prediction. So Jared Fogle is a massive nonce essentially, and he has been featured in South Park multiple times. Originally, he first appeared in Season 6's Jared Has AIDS, which released in 2002, 13 years before his sick actions were ever discovered. If you're unaware as to who Jared is, essentially he was the spokesman for Subway from 2000 to 2015, due to his very inspirational story of losing 245 pounds from just eating Subway twice a day. Anyway, the episode features Jared saying to lose the weight he had help from AIDS, spelt like this, but everyone assumes he's talking about AIDS, spelt like this, and it's a running gag throughout the episode. In the episode, Jared wants to help people by giving them AIDS, leading to such lines as,
"I'm gonna seek out all the underprivileged and hungry children of the world, and I'm going to give them AIDS myself."
You're gonna give children AIDS?
Which have aged like a fine wine knowing what we know now. Because of this, the episode sees him get fired from his Subway role and eventually chased by a mob and prepared to be hung for what they think are sick actions because of this misunderstanding. And that has aged beautifully, mimicking what would end up happening with Jared being fired from Subway for being a nonce. Although the ending has the boys explain the mistake and everyone forgives Jared. Little do they know, Jared has returned in South Park a few times following this episode. He's in the crowd during I'm a Little Bit Country, he is one of the celebrities in 200 and 201, and after he was arrested, he was featured in the season 19 premiere episode Stunning and Brave, where Cartman sent in a bunch of Syrian refugee children into the PC frat house, then sends Jared in, who obviously goes after them. I promise that all makes sense in the episode. Jared also appears as a character you fight during the Thin White Line mission in the Fractured But Whole. And finally, his most recent appearance, for now, is in the South Park vaccination special, where he is briefly seen in the crowd who attempts to take the boys' vaccines. Randy Shrine. This is referring to the giant Randy shrine owned by user @TurkeyTaffy. The walls are covered in Randy images and every surface has some kind of Randy related thing on it. Like there's plushes, figures, cards, notebooks, bottles, and even a Randy figure in a jar. And a Randy body pillow. Cool stuff. Season 2 premiere April Fools. The last episode of Season 1 of South Park was Cartman's Mum is a Dirty Slut, which ended on a cliffhanger where Cartman's dad was about to be revealed, and they said it'd be revealed on the next episode that would release in 4 weeks. Now, this episode aired February 25th, 1998, and the next episode was to air on April 1st, 1998. So, Matt and Trey took this opportunity to troll their viewers a little. Instead of an episode that revealed Cartman's father airing, the episode Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus was aired, which was a full-length Terrence and Phillip episode, and the next episode wouldn't be aired for another 3 weeks. Now, some people got pissed about this, and even complained to Comedy Central directly, with them receiving angry phone calls, one of which was even reenacted for a commercial.
Who the do you think you guys are with Comedy Central and that South Park? I mean, people have been waiting 4 weeks to see who the Cartman's father is, and all you guys can show is Terrence and Phillip? You guys. You guys suck. You.
And the actual episode would eventually air on April 22nd, with it being revealed that Cartman's mum is actually a hermaphrodite, meaning she has both male and female genitalia, and thus is both his parents. However, this was later retconned in 201, where it was revealed Jack Tenorman was actually Cartman's dad. Video game censorship. So South Park The Stick of Truth was censored in other parts of the world. Firstly, in Australia, the Australian Classification Board refused to rate the game because of the anal probing scenes in the Alien Abduction quest, and also the abortion operations in the Unplanned Parenthood quest. So these parts were censored by having an image of a crying koala on screen and text explaining what would have happened in the censored part. The game was also censored in Europe, where the anal probing and abortion parts are censored in a similar way, having an image of a statue in front of the Europe flag with text stating what would have happened. The game would be further censored in Germany and Austria, where Nazi-related things were censored, with the imagery being covered by black boxes and the lines from Hitler's speeches being replaced with different lines, or at one point just bleeped out. Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Hello Kitty Island Adventure was a fictional game made up for the season 10 episode Make Love Not Warcraft, where Butters says he doesn't play World of Warcraft and instead plays Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
I don't play World of Warcraft, but I'm playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Now, this episode aired in 2006, and at the time, no such game actually existed. However, 17 years later, an official Hello Kitty game called Hello Kitty Island Adventure was released for Apple Arcade and later Switch and PS5 in 2025. Many people pointed out how this game had the same name as the fake one from the episode 17 years ago, eventually leading to an official statement being made where it was stated the game wasn't associated to South Park in any way. And that concludes layer 4, meaning since the iceberg is 8 layers, we're halfway through, maybe. That's probably not exactly accurate, but close enough. Anyway, on to layer 5.
Kill John Lennon! Kill John Lennon!
A Mother's Courage. A Mother's Courage was a short released on the Comedy Central website in 1998 that coincided with the release of Season 2's Halloween special, Spooky Fish. In the short, the boys demonstrate how to carve a pumpkin to look like Lou Diamond Phillips, with Kenny carving it and repeatedly accidentally stabbing himself. The entire time, Cartman is eating candy corn, until he eventually throws up on the pumpkin where Kyle states that it now looks more like Lou Diamond Phillips, and it ends. Now originally, this short was also available to download via a 50 kilobyte file called southpark.mcs, MCS being a file type for media conveyor, which was a tool intended to rival Flash. However, since Flash would later become the significantly more popular option, Comedy Central removed this short and instead replaced it with a comic that followed the same story, which left the original version as lost media, and it wouldn't be found until October of 2015 when YouTube user Manis found and re-uploaded the short. Cartman on NPR. So, on April 5th, 2008, Cartman did an interview with NPR, National Public Radio, who have interviewed many fictional characters before. For this, Trey Parker answered questions in character as Cartman. He was interviewed by Julie Rovner and answered questions from the Proust questionnaire, which was a questionnaire originally answered by French writer Marcel Proust, hence the name, and was later adapted by James Lipton, and is now used in interviews in the modern day as it's supposedly good at developing and showing someone's character. This interview was recorded and has been uploaded to YouTube by user Mr. T, so if you want to listen to it, it's there.
What's your favorite color?
Definitely Caucasian.
I love to singer original. During a scene from Cartman Gets an Anal Probe, Cartman is put under alien control via an alien beam and sings a song called I Love to Singer, which you probably remember, and he also dances. But where did this song originally come from? Well, it originated back in 1936, where it was made for a Warner Bros. Merry Melodies cartoon of the same name released July 18th, where the music was made by Norman Spencer. The short follows some owls, with this one originally having sung the song. Stan Lit on Fire. In the season 1 episode, An Elephant Makes Love to a Pig, there is a scene where Shelley beats the shit out of Stan, and during this scene, there is an awkward cut from Stan lying on the floor to Stan lying on the floor in a puddle of water that just appeared out of nowhere.
Someday, Shelly, I'm gonna be...
Well, the reason for this random puddle appearing is that originally there was a scene where Shelley repeatedly lit Stan on fire and then put him out with water, which was cut before release, with the likely reason being to avoid an incident similar to what had happened with Beavis and Butthead a few years ago, where the episode Comedians, which featured Beavis accidentally burning down a comedy club, was blamed by a mother of a 5-year-old boy who burnt down their trailer for the incident, with her claiming he did it because he'd seen Beavis and Butthead do it, and there was a chance that maybe a kid could see Stan being lit on fire and try it in real life. Also, important note is that this story ended up being false and the boy had never even seen Beavis and Butthead because the family didn't have cable. This cutscene has made its way out into the world and can be viewed in full on YouTube. Also, when they were remastering the series into HD, they removed this puddle from under Stan. Kyle killed off. So, Kenny was killed off in the season 5 episode Kenny Dies. However, originally, it wasn't supposed to be Kenny who was killed off, and instead, Kyle was meant to die. This was mentioned in the episode's commentary, where it was explained they were gonna kill off Kyle because his personality was too similar to Stan's, which made him a redundant character. However, they later decided against this because, I mean, Kyle and Stan are friends, so of course they're gonna be similar. But the two really wanted Butters to be a main kid, and so killed off Kenny, since they were sick of the gag of having him die constantly, and he was, quote, more of just a prop anyway. Mr. Kitty's gender. Mr. Kitty is Cartman's cat, and his or her gender is a little odd, as initially you'd assume they're male because, you know, it's Mr. Kitty after all. But then in season 3's Cat Orgy, Mr. Kitty is shown to be in heat, which is something only female cats can do, so it's female I guess now. But then it switches back to male again, as in season 12's Major Boobage, the boys use Mr. Kitty to test whether you can get high off of male cat urine or not. So this is confusing. Is Mr. Kitty a boy or a girl? Well, we'd actually get an official answer to this via the FAQ section of the South Park Studios website, where it was stated Mr. Kitty is actually intersex. Power outage. On October 9th, 2013, Season 17, Episode 3, World War Zimmerman, aired, and the next episode, later revealed as Goth Kids 3, Dawn of the Posers, was scheduled to air the following week on October 16th. However, during the week it was being produced, there was a power outage at South Park Studios, meaning they couldn't produce the episode and missed the deadline, which was the first time it had ever happened in the show's history. So because of this, the episode got delayed, and this was announced via a post on the South Park Studios website that read, "On Tuesday night, South Park Studios lost power. From animation to rendering to editing and sound, all of our computers were down for hours, and we were unable to finish episode 1704, Goth Kids 3, Dawn of the Posers, in time for air tonight." Trey Parker said, "It sucks to miss an air date, but after all these years of tempting fate by delivering the show last minute, I guess it was bound to happen." It was also accompanied with pictures from the studio. And with this, the airing was replaced with an airing of Scott Tenorman Must Die instead, which was accompanied by live tweets. Goth Kids 3, Dawn of the Posers would then air the following week on October 23rd. Saddam Hussein saw the movie. So apparently, after Saddam Hussein was captured, when he was being held and on trial for crimes against humanity, US Marines forced him to repeatedly watch South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, which obviously heavily featured him in a gay relationship with Satan. We know this from Matt Stone, who stated he has good information from the Marines on detail in Iraq that they showed Saddam the movie. And apparently Saddam actually liked the movie, and Matt and Trey were given a signed photo of him from the US Army's 4th Infantry Division, with the two stating, "We're very proud of our signed Saddam picture and what it means. It's one of our biggest highlights." Now, whether or not this is actually true is up for debate, as many say this didn't happen. However, I think it did because it's funny. Original intro. So the intro for the series changed from the unaired pilot to the actual premiere of the series, with the original one not making it to air. In this version, the music was slower, making the intro as a whole last longer, and everyone's voices were more like down, like they weren't as excited as in the final version. On top of this, the animation was different, with it all being one long sequence of Les Claypool walking through the town and passing various notable locations, as opposed to it cutting in various points like in the final version, with each character appearing from the bottom of the screen to sing their line as it happens. Also, the lyrics are slightly different here. Notably, Kenny says, "Our whole town is bigger, damn it, right down to the little granite." Which is different in the final intro. Also, the intro just kinda ends, with it not having the town sign like the other versions, as it was shown at the start instead. Original Season 20 ending. So, Season 20 of South Park heavily focused on the 2016 election, with Mr. Garrison being a stand-in for Trump and competing against Hillary Clinton, and they did a similar thing to About Last Night for this season, with them assuming Trump would lose and having the season build up to that happening. However, as we now know, Trump did not lose, which heavily impacted the season. Notably, Season 20 Episode 7, which aired November 9th, 2016, had to be changed, due to it originally seemingly going to be about Hillary Clinton winning. Currently, Season 20 Episode 7 is known as OGs. However, when the episode was initially announced, it was titled The Very First Gentleman, with very little being known about this version. All we have from it is the name, a synopsis that was released prior to its change, that reads, "The new administration has plans for Gerald on an all-new episode of South Park titled The Very First Gentleman on Wednesday, November 9 at 10 PM, ET/PT on Comedy Central. PC principal tries one more time to make peace between the boys and the girls. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Gerald comes face to face with the troll hunter, and we also have some animation from the episode, as there was a promo made for it before it aired. This promo in total is 24 seconds long, and features about 17 seconds of animation, with it showing PC Principal introducing Bill Clinton to the school. It is unknown how much of the episode had to be rewritten and how much animation exists for the original version, with this being all we have for now. Los Angeles Kings shorts. The Los Angeles Kings are an ice hockey team that Matt Stone and Trey Parker are big fans of, and since 2002, South Park has made shorts in support of the Los Angeles Kings featured in pre-game videos. These shorts largely feature Cartman in ice hockey attire on the ice rink, with some occasionally featuring the other boys, and they're essentially made to hype up the people watching the game. Flash games. The Comedy Central and later South Park Studios websites used to have flash games on them based on parts of the series. For example, in 1999, there was one release titled Rainforest Rescue, based off Season 3's Rainforest Schmainforest. These games would continue to be released until they began to be phased out in favour of the Xbox Live Arcade games and also the Stick of Truth. The flash games stopped being updated in 2008 and were all removed in 2018. Then of course, Flash later shut down in 2020. If you want to play these games today, some have been archived online. Barney's Holiday Windows. Barney's New York was a store located in New York that would sell items from luxury brands, and they're notable for their Christmas window displays that look cool. They've done the Royal Family, a 1960s style one, and in 2016 they did a South Park themed one, which showed some of the kids looking for a window at toys, whilst talking about the ones they'd want for Christmas, with it featuring original voice acting, and the way they speak is by having their faces be projected onto them, and because it's like a public window, it's all family friendly, meaning they don't swear. This looks cool and the characters look very well made. Trump's penis is Parker's finger. In the previously mentioned pro-Trump PSA from season 27's Sermon on the Mount, the ending features Trump's penis coming up to say, "I'm Donald J. Trump and I endorse this message." And fun fact, his penis is actually Trey Parker's finger with a fake penis tip on top of it, as was revealed in behind the scenes photos of the shoot. Can I show this? Like, it is technically just a finger, but I mean, probably not. Cut game content. Like most games, the South Park games have had content cut from them prior to release, and covering every single piece of cut content would take quite a while, so I'll just go over some notable ones. Firstly, in South Park Rally, Miss Crabtree, Chicken Lover, a Clown, and Fat Abbott were intended to be playable characters, however were scrapped during development, and South Park Elementary was meant to be in the game as a track you could play on. In South Park The Stick of Truth, there was lots of cut content, including missions, objects, and characters, with there being a whole bunch of scrapped friends. I'll have some of this content scroll on screen right now. Also, interestingly, there was a file in the game called Pip's Skull that was, well, Pip's skull, with it being unknown what it'd be used for. Similarly, the Fractured Butthole also features many missions, objects, and characters that were cut during development, which again, I'll show some of on screen. There's less here than the Stick of Truth. Heidi's parents. Heidi has had a lot of different parents over the series, with them having changed a lot, which is probably because of a similar thing to the characters' names changing, where they just forget they gave this character parents already because it wasn't very significant and probably wasn't something they'd remember, so they just give her new ones. So the first time we see her parents is in season 4's Probably, where she directly refers to this guy as her dad. Then later in season 5's Here Comes the Neighborhood, she is seen walking with a different father, presumably father. It's not outright stated like last time, but I'm not sure why else she'd be walking with him. Then in season 7's Grey Dawn, she is seen with this woman who is presumably supposed to be her mother, and is different to her original mother. The very next episode, she is once again seen with a different father. Season 9's The Losing Edge has her eating pizza with this guy, who is different to the previous dads. Then later the same season, her parents were replaced once again, with these two in Margarine, who would actually end up being her official parent later on. But before that, season 10's Cartoon Wars has this as her mother, and also she maybe has a brother here, which is interesting. Season 11's Le Petite Tourette has her mum changed once again, and finally, season 14's Medicinal Fried Chicken has this as her mother. Her permanent parents in the show are these two, who remain her parents to this day. With that, layer 5 is over, leaving only 3 to go. If you've made it this far into the video, you're probably enjoying it, so consider subscribing for more similar content to watch. Also, like the video and hype it and stuff. Anyway, now it's time for layer 6.
But
Mom, I have to get some Pokemon doll before everybody else does, cause then I'll be cool.
Cancelled Game Boy Color game. So, whilst Acclaim was developing the original South Park game for PC, PS1 and N64, they were also developing a South Park platformer for the Game Boy Color, which would have released alongside the others. This game was entirely finished and ready to be shipped out, but mere days before it was going to be sent off to Nintendo, Matt and Trey pulled it after discussing how the Game Boy Color was a console marketed at children, and South Park was not at all a child-friendly thing. Following this, Matt and Trey kept the prototype copies of the game, and the game was reprogrammed and turned into Maya the Bee for Europe and the New Adventures of Mary-Kate and Ashley for the United States. Because the game was cancelled, it rendered it as lost media, since nothing of the game had made its way out to the public. But then finally, on August 6, 2018, the ROM for the game was found by Dacool Dude after months of contact with the head developer on the game. Cancelled Hit and Run clone. So, on the topic of cancelled games, there was another cancelled South Park game that would have been similar to The Simpsons Hit and Run. The game was being developed by Ubisoft and BuzzMonkey Software in 2005, and would have released for the PS2, Xbox and GameCube. The game was never announced and was cancelled pretty early into development. No one even knew of this game's existence up until September 27th, 2015, when the YouTube channel Happy Console Gamer discovered a prototype of the game on a debug Xbox console. The game was very unfinished, but featured an open world map with a bunch of unfinished buildings. You could play as the four boys and were able to enter vehicles and start driving them, much like Hit and Run. The game's prototype also contained Cartman's house, which was very buggy and would crash often, and also a mental hospital complete with a finished cutscene. There was also other stuff like test maps and a combat system. There was so much stuff in this prototype, but just none of it was even remotely close to being finished. This is the only version of the game to have ever surfaced, and it's unknown why exactly it was cancelled. Shorts for award shows. So, South Park has appeared at numerous award shows over the years, with shorts being made featuring characters from the series to be played at these shows. Firstly, there was the Cable Ace Awards 1997, where the four boys appeared as special presenters for the Best Talk Show Series award. Then there was the 12th Annual American Comedy Awards in 1998, which showed the boys watching the show, with Cartman being mad that South Park wasn't nominated. He then asks Kenny to adjust the TV to get a signal, to where he is electrocuted and killed. Following that, next was the 51st Primetime Emmy Awards in 1999, where the boys present a joke tribute video to people who died that year, with the people not existing or not having died. So there's a made-up guy, Kenny 5 times, Charlie Sheen, and God. Then Kenny is killed by being crushed by the giant Emmy Award statue. Then there was the MTV Movie Awards in 2000, where they did a parody of the film Gladiator, with some characters from the show. Next up is the 58th Primetime Emmy Awards in 2006, where they reference the episode Trapped in the Closet, with Conan O'Brien being in Stan's room and locking himself in his closet. Stan calls for Randy, who then tries to get him to come out, and he does, but says there's someone else in there, where Tom Cruise peeks out before closing the door again. It then ends with Randy trying to get Cruise out. Finally, there was the 2012 Spike TV Video Game Awards, where they did the opening, with Cartman beating up a hobbit before introducing the show. The Aristocrats. The Aristocrats is a joke that has been told by numerous stand-up comedians over the years, with its entire point being to essentially be as disgusting and offensive as possible. And it definitely succeeds in that, so much so that I can't even repeat it here because I both don't want to, and it would also potentially get the video fully age restricted, like not even just demonetized. Anyway, in 2005, a documentary was made about the joke, and South Park animated a segment for this documentary that featured the boys at the bus stop, with Cartman telling the joke, and Kyle repeatedly asking him to stop and being disgusted at the joke. Real South Park. The Real South Park was a short featured on Comedy Central Netherlands for both April Fool's Day and to promote Season 14's airings. It was essentially live-action South Park and lasted about a minute. It saw the class take a trip to Amsterdam, where we see the four boys looking at a, quote, whore, because according to Cartman, all women in Amsterdam are whores. Kyle and Cartman end up arguing, leading to them pushing each other and accidentally knocking Kenny in front of a train, killing him. Then it ends with the text, "There's only one Real South Park, Season 14, every Friday on the Dutch Comedy Central." All hell breaks loose. All Hell Breaks Loose was supposedly going to be the original name for Bigger, Longer and Uncut, but had to be changed because the MPAA wouldn't allow Hell to be in the movie's title, which led Matt and Trey to change it to Bigger, Longer and Uncut, which if you hadn't realised is a penis joke, which was approved. However, Richard Taylor, a spokesman for the MPAA, has denied that this happened, with the MPAA apparently not rejecting the use of Hell in the title, which kinda makes sense because there's movies rated by the MPAA that do have Hell in the title. Real life Kenny. So interestingly, Kenny's character is actually based off of a real person, being a childhood friend of Trey Parker who was also named Kenny. The real Kenny was the poorest kid in the neighbourhood and would always wear an orange parka, which made it difficult for people to understand what he was saying. The similarities here should be obvious, being that in the show, Kenny is poor and wears an orange parka, and the thing of him dying is also influenced by the real life Kenny, as apparently he would often skip school, and when this happened, people would jokingly say he had died, with him obviously eventually coming back. Much like how Kenny dies in the show yet returns every time. Alex. Alex Glick was a character who only appeared in Season 7's Red Man's Greed, and was voiced by a guy of the same name who was the highest bidder at a charity auction to benefit AIDS research, which won him the prize of a guest appearance in South Park. He has a few lines throughout the episode, with him just kinda being there, and no characters acknowledging why this random guy is just here, until at the very end when it's finally addressed with this scene.
Dude, who the hell are you? Alex. Alex Glick? I got to come on and do the guest voice thingy?
What? Get the hell out of here!
Hi Mom, hi Dad, hi Jill.
The Real List. The Season 11 episode, The List, followed the girls of South Park Elementary writing a list ranking every boy's looks from cutest to ugliest, which the boys steal, where it's revealed that Kyle was voted ugliest, causing him to become an outcast who has to hang out with the ugly kids. However, later in the episode, it's revealed that the list was fake, and that Kyle wasn't really the ugliest boy in school. Eventually, Stan, Wendy and Kyle are able to obtain the real list, but instead of seeing where Kyle really placed, they choose to burn it, meaning their true ranking was never revealed, at least not in the episode, as there was a deleted ending that saw Wendy reveal that she had looked at the list and that Cartman was last place. This is all we officially know of the actual ranking. However, fans have attempted to figure out the list based off of statements from the episode, leading to the creation of this fan-made list. Fish Sticks' original ending. The Season 13 episode Fish Sticks saw Kanye West not understanding the joke of, do you like fish sticks? Do you like putting fish sticks in your mouth? Then you're a gay fish. Obviously, the joke is that fish sticks sounds like fish dicks, but Kanye can't understand why people keep calling him a gay fish. At the end of the episode, Kanye accepts that maybe he truly is a gay fish and jumps in the ocean to go live as a gay fish, and the episode ends. However, originally, the ending was a little different, as there is a deleted scene from the episode included on the DVD that showed Coast Guard finding Kanye's dead body floating in the ocean, with him being all bloated. So originally, Kanye was meant to die at the end of the episode. Ike's voice. Ike has interestingly been voiced by a lot of people throughout the series, the reason being that since he is 3 years old, they'd use real young kids to provide his voice, and well, kids age and their voices change, meaning they consistently needed new voice actors for him to keep his voice consistent. These voice actors are usually relatives of people who work on the show, and in total, across the 28 seasons of the show, Ike has had 16 different voice actors, one of which being Matt Stone, who voiced Ike in the Season 17 episode Taming Strange, where he hits puberty. Also, in Season 18's #Rehash, he is voiced by Bill Hader. I Remember When We Fell in Love. I Remember When We Fell in Love is this song elsewhere, but a supposed studio version of the track was uploaded to YouTube in 2024 by user X4Tash, which finally allowed people to hear it without barfing sounds. Drawn Together. Drawn Together is another adult animated series that aired on Comedy Central, which had 3 seasons starting in 2004 and ending in 2007, with it later having a movie, and has referenced South Park numerous times, most notably in its movie, where they spent a large portion of it just shitting on the show, most likely because it was prioritized by Comedy Central over them due to being more popular. What in the Butt lawsuit. In Season 12's Canada on Strike, South Park recreated the viral video What in the Butt, which was a music video for a song of the same name, that, as of right now, has 75 million views. They did this by having Butters recreate the video, which then goes viral in the episode. Anyway, a couple of years after the episode aired, on November 12, 2010, Comedy Central and Viacom were sued for copyright infringement by Brown Mark Films, the video's original creators, due to the recreation of the video. In July of 2011, a federal judge decided that South Park's use used of the video fell under fair use, which makes sense because it was a parody which would fall under fair use, and thus the defendants did not owe damages. Butters was based on Eric Stow. Eric Stow is currently a producer on South Park who has known Matt and Trey for many years, working on many of their projects. He first met Trey when he attended the same high school as him, where he appeared in short films and theatre productions alongside him. He would later go on to attend the University of Colorado Boulder with both Matt and Trey. Anyway, the character of Butters is apparently loosely based off of Eric Stow, with Matt having previously teased Eric by calling him Buddy or Little Buddy, which eventually evolved into giving him the nickname Butters. Butters' personality was inspired by Eric Stow's cautious attitude towards the many targets of the show's merciless humour. North Park Much. Much is the channel that airs South Park in Canada, and in 2013 they created a series of shorts known as North Park, which was a Canadian parody of South Park where everyone's really nice, with it featuring 4 boys animated in a similar style to the show, who resembled the main 4 boys of South Park. These each lasted about 20 seconds and would then be followed with the South Park characters being angry and a promo for the upcoming South Park airing time. These were aired during commercial breaks on the channel. This was done to promote the 17th season of South Park, and there were 5 of these shorts made. The Return of Lemmy-Winks. The Return of Lemmy-Winks was originally going to be the 5th episode of Season 8 that would air on April 14th, 2004. It would have seen the return of Lemmy-Winks, who first appeared in Season 6's The Death Camp of Tolerance, which I feel was obvious from the title, and had been advertised on both Comedy Central and the South Park Studios website. However, when the time came for the episode to air, the episode Awesome-O was aired instead, with a disclaimer being shown prior that read, "Due to this week's tragic events in Hawaii, the Lemmy-Winks episode of South Park will not be shown tonight." Now, there weren't no tragic events in Hawaii that week, and the real reason the episode didn't air was because it was scrapped for just being unfunny. Initially, it was stated that it had just been pushed back to later in the season, though it never ended up ever getting made. Trey Parker has talked about what would happen in the episode, stating, "We got into it, we created all these other characters. It was going to be an Easter episode actually a year ago, and it was going to be that the Easter Bunny had been found dead with his balls stuffed down his throat. So all the critters of the forest got together and said, we need a new critter to be the new Easter critter. And they voted on the Gerbil King, and they go to find the Gerbil King. The Badger Prince was, of course, the backhanded one going, you'll never make it, Lemmy-Winks. But Lemmy-Winks was never doing anything, just sitting there being a gerbil. And we started animating it, and it's just one of those shows that happens. Matt and Trey have also stated that we still have it in the computer to fall back on at some point, which confirms that at least some stuff was made for the episode. However, exactly how much is unknown, and nothing from the episode has ever been released. Lemmy-Winks would later return in Season 15's Bass to Mouth. We've been there. In 2016, to promote the upcoming Season 20, Comedy Central placed billboards in various locations across America that had previously been featured in the series, with each billboard containing an image from an episode relating to the location and the text, "We've been there," written underneath, with Season 20's release date next to it. So there was one outside the Scientology headquarters, which featured a screenshot from Trapped in the Closet, one in front of the White House that featured a screenshot of Michelle Obama and Barack Obama from About Last Night, one outside Casa Bonita, one outside the Salt Lake Temple and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints office building with images from All About Mormons, one outside the Facebook headquarters with an image from You Have Zero Friends, one in front of the campaign headquarters of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, one in front of the US and Canada border, one in front of the Lincoln Memorial containing a screenshot from Super Best Friends, which is especially interesting given how that episode was already banned at the time of this campaign, and one's in front of KFC, Hooters, PF Chang's and Whole Foods. There was also a commercial made for the We've Been There campaign that showed someone growing up with various South Park things being there throughout their life. Very wholesome. Puff Puff / Swanson. Puff Puff and Swanson are two names that Butters was referred to prior to him being like an actual character and being referred to as Butters. He was called Puff Puff and Swanson in the scripts and storyboards of early episodes, and Stan even directly refers to him as Swanson in Season 2's Conjoined Fetus Lady. It wasn't until Season 3's Two Guys Naked in a Hot Tub that Butters was established as being called Butters and was introduced as an actual character. Altered promo scenes. There have been many instances where early promos for South Park episodes have had scenes in them that are either different to scenes in the actual episode or just don't appear at all. The obvious reason for this is because of the way the show is made, there's no footage of the episodes to be shown that early on, but they presumably know what the episode is going to be about and so create a scene to be shown in the promo that's probably going to be similar to the episode, which is a similar thing to what happened with Season 27's trailer. Some examples of this are the previously mentioned clip of PC Principal from Season 20's cancelled episode, and a recent example is is in the promo for season 28 episode 2, The Woman in the Hat, where Randy is telling Stan they're moving in with Grandpa, which is very similar to the scene in the final episode, but slightly different. So the scene was likely planned, but wasn't finished at the time, so they just animated this part for the promo. This is the promo version.
We can't afford a house, so we're moving in with your grandpa.
Moving in with Grandpa?
And this is the episode version.
Well, no, we can't afford a house, so we're moving in with your grandpa.
Moving in with Grandpa?
And the promo for the second episode of season 27 featured a scene of Donald Trump and Satan at some kind of event that never actually appeared in the episode. That concludes layer 6 of the Iceberg, and if you're still watching, I'm curious if you're actively watching this video or just listening to it whilst doing something. So comment down below which one you're doing, and a month from now I'll turn it into a pie chart and put it in the pinned comment, like I did with my Nickelodeon Lost Media Iceberg. Anyway, on to layer 7. White Tolkien. In the early seasons of the show, a character could occasionally be seen in the background who looked exactly like Tolkien, only with white skin. He is featured throughout season 1, and Matt and Trey actually gave a potential reason for this in season 1's commentary, where they stated that it is probably due to animators being lazy and simply just recoloring Tolkien to add more characters in the background. New Year's countdowns. For New Year's in 1998, 1999 and 2000, Comedy Central aired an original South Park short that would start a few seconds before the new year and end after it, which featured the characters counting down then saying Happy New Year. These only lasted about 30 seconds each, and the 1998 and 2000 ones featured multiple characters standing together, and the 1999 one featured just Mr. Mackey. And I'm not entirely sure who would be watching Comedy Central at midnight on New Year's, something Cartman even brings up in one of the shorts.
Wait a minute. It's New Year's Eve 1999. What the hell are you people doing watching this crap?
But it's still a cool idea. Baking Bacon with Macon. Baking Bacon with Macon is a mock cooking show created by and starring Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who act as chefs. It also features a pig called Macon, who eats bacon. The recipes seen in the show focused heavily on bacon, hence the name, and its various segments were included on the season 2 DVD as pre-episode bumpers for discs 1 and 2. If you wish to watch it today, it's all available on YouTube. Lil Rush. Lil Rush was a short created by South Park in 2007 for the band Rush. The short lasts about a minute and sees the boys in a band called Lil Rush, with Cartman singing the song Tom Sawyer with incorrect lyrics, to which Kyle points out, and then Stan says to start the song again and do it right. This acted as the opening to the song Tom Sawyer for the band's Snakes and Arrows tour in 2007. The clip is available to be viewed today because it was also featured on the concert DVD. Stan Man plush. The Stan Man plush is an incredibly rare Fun-for-All plush from 1998 that has Cartman's body but Stan's colours, and there's only around 10 confirmed to exist. It's quite an odd plush as initially it was thought to be some kind of error, however as it turns out that most likely wasn't the case, and it's unknown why this was made as it's not something that had appeared in the series, and they only ever made very few of them, so what was even the point? As of right now there is no conclusive answer behind the creation of this mysterious plush, and given the general lack of information surrounding Fun-for-All, it's unlikely the mystery will ever be solved. Monty Python's Python Night, 30 Years of Monty Python. Python Night was an evening of Monty Python related programmes that was broadcast on the UK channel BBC 2 on October 9th, 1999. It lasted for 3 hours 40 minutes, and one of the things shown for this event was a documentary about the history of Monty Python called It's the Monty Python Story. This documentary included a minute-long South Park short called The Dead Friend sketch, which was a parody of the Monty Python Dead Parrot sketch, which replaces the parrot with Kenny, and sees Cartman bring Kenny back to the friend store to return him because he's dead, where Kyle, who is working there, attempts to convince him he's still alive. Matt and Trey are also featured in the documentary where they talked about Monty Python. Fish Sticks aired for 2 hours. At the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards, Taylor Swift won the Best Female Video Award for the music video of her song You Belong With Me, and during her acceptance speech, Kanye West went on stage and took the microphone from Taylor to say, "Yo Taylor, I'm really happy for you, I'ma let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time, with him referring to the music video for the song Single Ladies. This resulted in the audience booing Kanye and him then flipping off the audience and giving the microphone back to Taylor. He was then removed from from the show. Following this, many people shit on Kanye for his actions, and Comedy Central would actually respond to this whole thing by replacing the originally scheduled South Park episodes for 2 days after the event with just the season 13 episode Fish Sticks, which heavily featured Kanye. The episode was aired on repeat for 2 hours straight on the channel. South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, the complete motion picture soundtrack. This is referring to an extremely rare version of the soundtrack to South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, known as the complete motion picture soundtrack, which contained every single song from the movie and also the score to the film, unlike the regular version which is missing some songs and also doesn't contain the score. However, it's pretty much impossible to find this version because it's so rare, but you can listen to it on YouTube. James Hetfield song. James Hetfield is the lead vocalist of the band Metallica, and he provided the vocals for the song Hell Isn't Good from South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut. However, he went uncredited, which meant not many people knew this was him, and on top of this song was one of the 3 that wasn't included on the normal version of the film's soundtrack. Robert T. Puna. Robert T. Puna is a random reoccurring name featured in the series. The 1995 Jesus vs. Santa short had a title card that stated Robert T. Puna Presents, and The Stick of Truth also had a title card that read Robert T. Puna Presents a Puna Pictures production. On top of this, Robert T. Puna appears as an executive producer on the season 2 episode Chicken Lover, and it's also the name of this news reporter. But where does the name come from and what does it mean? Well, some believe it's just a random name, and others have pointed out that Puna is similar to the word poon, which is slang for vagina. Deleted Season 6 intro. The original intro for Season 6 of the series contained clips from Season 5's Super Best Friends, which would later be banned. This included both clips that featured Muhammad and clips that didn't. Muhammad was also in the crowd in the intro, and so, when they were remastering the series, they changed this intro to remove the clips of Muhammad and also remove him from the crowd, which is interesting as they left him in the crowd for Seasons 7 to 11, but I guess he's less noticeable there. They did leave in the non-Muhammad clips from the episode in the intro though. Tweak X Craig body pillow. In the Fractured Butthole, there is a mission where you have to go around town collecting yaoi of Tweak and Craig, and if you collect it all, you are rewarded with an artifact called Big Bang Boy Buttress, which is a body pillow with Tweak and Craig on it that can increase your stats. Now, the artist who drew the art for this item made it the right size to fit on an actual body pillow, and so Ubisoft would actually gift this artist a real body pillow with the artwork on it. Escape Room. Cartman's Escape Room was an escape room created by South Park Studios and Escape the Room. It would have players be in the 4th grade classroom and have to solve various challenging puzzles directly from the twisted mind of Eric Cartman within 60 minutes in order to escape. The room first appeared at 2018 San Diego Comic Con as sort of a first look / test thing, and later officially launched in Chicago on May 15, 2019, before then being made available in major cities across the US. In 2021, a virtual version of the room was released because of the pandemic, that would allow people to do the room over a Zoom call by having 2 Escape the Room employees physically in the room. Opera Gallery. In 2011, in order to celebrate the series' 15th anniversary, Comedy Central teamed up with the artist Ron English to round up 15 other artists for a group exhibition of South Park works at the Opera Gallery in New York. This exhibit, known as 15 Artists Interpret South Park, was on display between March 28, 2011 to April 10, 2011, and I'll have some of the artwork up on screen right now for you to see. Also on display at the event were minifigures from the upcoming South Park X Kid Robot series, and cutouts of characters from the show. I like the Lost Supper painting, I think that one's cool. The exhibit would also later be viewable at San Diego Comic Con that year. Annuals. From 2011 to 2014, South Park received annuals created by Pedigree Books, who have also created numerous other annuals for other properties. Mostly properties for kids, and all properties that are enjoyed by kids whether or not they're meant to. An annual is basically a book released yearly about something. So the South Park ones feature pages about various characters that sometimes give you a description about them, and then are taken up mostly by comics, which are actually entire episodes that have been turned into comics. I have all these, and interestingly, my copy of the 2012 one is printed entirely upside down somehow. The 2011 one features these pages with a quote from a character on them, and then also has Good Times with Weapons and Cartman gets an anal probe in comic book form, which are comprised of many screenshots from the episode, some of which edited to better suit comic book form, with speech bubbles containing the characters' lines, and it's really weird seeing the episodes like this. They also feature some 2-page spread images. The 2012 one now has 2 pages for various characters that give a description about them, and contains Volcano and Professor Chaos in comic book form. 2013's one has descriptions, and then then only the episode's Scott Tenorman must die in comic book form. And also, interestingly, Cartman's page contains an image from 200. Then finally, 2014 has descriptions of characters, and then Cripple Fight as a comic, which has just been renamed to Fight. And by this point, you can tell they were cheaping out on making these. Not only is there only one comic now, but like, the books feel cheaper in a way I can't describe. You just have to touch them for yourself to find out. Oh yeah, this one also comes with a free Cartman mask you can cut out, so that's something. Also, it should be noted that even though these are labelled with a year, they actually come out in like September of the previous year. South Park movie site. SouthParkMovie.com was the website made to promote the South Park movie. It contained games, information about the characters, information about the movie like its release date, behind the scenes stuff, and trailers and stills from it, and also images and screensavers and backgrounds for your PC. The site stayed up for quite a while, even when it had served its purpose of promoting the movie, and would end up shutting down at some point in late 2003. The site is viewable today on the Wayback Machine, and currently, SouthParkMovie.com is a Korean website that seemingly talks about gambling from what I can tell from the pictures. Master P. Kenny's Dead. Kenny's Dead is a parody of the song Freddy's Dead by Curtis Mayfield, created by Master P, that appeared on the Chef Aid album. The song also had a music video made for it, which saw Kenny going to Vegas and winning loads of money, where he then flies the rest of the boys in, who go do stuff before Kenny opens his very own casino and then dies. And what's interesting about this is that Vegas is in the real world, like it's all live action, so Kenny is seen hanging out with a bunch of real people, which looks cool. Syndicated theme song. The syndicated theme song is the intro used for when the show was broadcast into syndication starting in 2005, meaning when it was aired on channels that weren't Comedy Central. The bass for this intro was the one used for seasons 1 to 4, and was edited to include many elements from other seasons up to season 8, which results in lots of stuff happening at every moment in the intro. It also changes the music from the original theme to the one used from season 7 to 10. Some stuff added includes Butters, who wasn't present originally because he was a background character, but here he misses the bus, and Jimmy and Timmy were added to the bus and fight each other like in Cripple Fight. I'll play both the original intro and the syndicated one side by side so that you can see all the different changes made to it. The Slim Shady Show. The Slim Shady Show was a cartoon released back in 2000 that follows Eminem and his alter egos going on wacky adventures, and somehow its animation looks cheaper than South Park. This series only had 10 episodes, and in its first one we see Eminem and his friends lose a basketball game to the South Park kids, and so they then go crush the party they were having to celebrate their victory and enact revenge by giving everyone Viagra, giving Cartman laxatives, and having Eminem's friend fuck Wendy. And it's just bizarre, and it also not very good. McDaniel College. Starting in the fall of 2009, McDaniel College in Maryland began offering a class that would study South Park episodes. According to the McDaniel College website, the class would delve into the highly relevant social and philosophical issues presented in South Park, such as immigration, stereotypes, consumerism, ethics, and political and feminist philosophy. So essentially, they'd analyze the messaging in South Park episodes, and the reason they did this is apparently because the show's humor was predicted to enhance the quality of academic discussion rather than detract from it. So people would analyse societal issues through South Park. This brings us to the end of layer 7 and onto the final layer of the entire iceberg.
Can't read my, no he can't read my poker face.
Jay Leno short. This is referring to a South Park short made for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno that aired on November 20th, 1997. It featured Jay Leno coming to the 3rd grade class to tell everyone about Thanksgiving, to which the boys then continuously make fun of his chin. They then swear a bunch and Jay Leno gets continuously more mad until he crashes out. When he's leaving, his chin knocks a shelf, causing this George Washington head to fly off the shelf and kill Kenny. Jay Leno's chin then opens up, revealing a propeller that flies him away, and the short ends. Mr. Garrison is a pedophile. In the season 4 episode Cartman Joins Nambla, Cartman is looking for more mature friends and ends up chatting with many individuals online who, without him knowing, are attempting to have sex with him. He then goes to meet up with one of these people, and this individual turns out to be Mr. Garrison, who is then quickly taken away by the FBI for attempting to solicit sex from a minor, being Cartman. Later in the episode, we see Mr. Garrison locked up in a cell in the South Park Police Department. Then later in the episode, Mr. Garrison is seen at the meeting for the North American Marlon Brando lookalikes, where, after finding this out, he states, "Oh damn it, I'm in the wrong place," with him instead intending to be at the meeting for the North American Man-Boy Love Association, which is a nonce group featured in the episode, and also weirdly a fucking real group for nonces in the real world. How does this actually exist? Die. Chinese South Park DVDs. So there are multiple of these bootleg Chinese South Park DVDs in existence that are seemingly all made by the same people given the similarity in their design. The boxes usually contain stolen 3D fan renders, presumably stolen, I admittedly don't know, but if they're already stealing from Comedy Central, I can't imagine they'd ask a fan if they could use their render, and come with lots of discs packaged in sleeves. As for how these exist and who's making them, we don't know. Given the fact that they're literally illegal products, there's no public info on their creation. But don't worry, because I managed to find one of these and order it, which was actually really easy because there's surprisingly loads of them on eBay, which makes me think these were sold in the UK and not just China, since there's tons for sale located in the UK. Oh yeah, also these kind of make sense to exist given that, as mentioned before, South Park never released in China, because given their censorship laws, there was no way it possibly could, so they never even tried. And I mean, this show was proven to be popular and there was a market of 1 billion people who hadn't seen it, so it makes sense someone in China would decide to try profit off this fact. Anyway, let's look at this DVD. Okay, so here we have South Park, the complete all season. So yeah, that's the complete all season, I guess. It says something in Chinese below it, presumably the complete series in Chinese, which I guess has been poorly translated to English. The cover's interesting. So we have the Comedy Central logo in the top left, who I would hazard a guess didn't make this. Most interestingly, we have these 3D renders of Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny. Kyle's for some reason only in his underwear. What I will say is it's a nice quality box. Anyway, let's flip it over onto the back, see what we got going on here. Revel in 17 classic episodes, now that South Park's 4th season is. For some reason, there's no space between season and is, but okay. Is this the description of season 4's DVD? Here's season 4. Revel in 17 classic episodes. Yeah, wait. So why did they just take the season 4 description? I don't actually know what this comes with. Copyright 2007. 2007, there should have been, I guess it depends when in 2007, but there should be 11 seasons in here, I guess. Another 3D render, but now it's of Officer Barbrady being attacked by turkeys, and then something in Chinese. I presume it's this. Anyway, time to open up the box now, see what's going on in here. So all the discs here are in, this is a nice box. They're stored in little golden compartments. So we've got disc 1 of something here. We have disc 4 and disc 3. Do we have a disc 2? I would hope so. Oh, disc 5 and disc 2. Okay. Anyway, this is, I guess, season 6 here, because this is the season 6 artwork. And then here we have, God knows. We have disc 1 of it though. What I assume happened is they just went on like Google Images and just like looked up South Park and took the images they thought looked cool. We got season 4. Oh yeah, season 4. So I guess that one was season 6. Okay, complete 4th season, discs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1. Okay, that's interesting. The official DVDs are spread over 3 discs. How is this on 5 discs and then there's like more? I'm definitely curious to see what's actually on the discs. So we have disc 3 of the other season 4, I guess. And then disc 5. This is disc 1 of something, I guess. Season 3, I'd assume. And we have disc 4 and then disc 5 of season 11. Okay, this one's actually labeled. So it does go up to season 11. And we have disc 5 of it here. Okay, so we have Passion of the Jew here, like the DVD. And it's not labeled as like disc 1 or anything. So is this just a copy of the Passion of the Jew DVD? We have season 5, I'd assume. This is cool. It's actually cool artwork. I don't know why it's here. It definitely doesn't fit. Disc 8, the complete 7th and 8th season. Why is season 7 and 8 labeled together if they're spread on separate discs anyway? The others weren't like that. Are these like discs from previously released sets just packaged together? I guess that would make sense. This is so weird. Then we have, I would say the movie, but it's spread over 3 discs and that wouldn't make any sense. I'm curious to see what's on these discs now. So many questions, no answers, because obviously whoever made this kept themselves anonymous because it's illegal to make. Start here with disc 1 of whatever this is going to end up being. Then an FBI warning. Copyright 255. This is very interesting. So given that it just has all these opening things, what I'm guessing is it's just a direct clone of the DVD, right? Oh, here we go. This is a menu from season 2. So it's just a copy of the disc. Okay. So they've just copied the actual discs from the real releases, but then they've spread it over 5 discs by just removing episodes from some. Like these ones here are blocked out. I guess it's a storage thing maybe. I do want to see what's on season 11 though, because that DVD won't have been out by this point. Well, okay, they got their own logo. Oh, okay, they made their own menu for this because they couldn't have stolen it from the actual DVD because it didn't exist. I wonder what the episodes on this look like. Okay, the episodes on the thing have just been taken from TV airings. That's quite interesting. Well, that concludes the look at this Chinese South Park DVD, I guess. Gingers have souls. Gingers Have Souls is a viral video posted to YouTube back on January 15th, 2010 by user CopperCap, and it sees a ginger person being mad at the season 9 episode Ginger Kids, where he then states,
"It really irritates me that South Park would say that red-haired people don't have souls, okay? Because we do have souls, alright?"
And this video currently has 48 million views. South Park would directly parody this video by having it be recreated by Cartman in ginger form for part of the promotion for season 14. Scott Tenorman Must Die original airing. So the originally aired version of the episode Scott Tenorman Must Die was slightly different to every other version of the episode for some reason. Firstly, in the current version, when Kenny dies from laughing too hard, we see his ghost come out his body and continue laughing. However, in the original airing of the episode, this ghost wasn't present. And also, at the end of the episode, when Cartman goes, "That's all folks," he originally had angry eyebrows, whereas now he doesn't. Why exactly these two things were changed in the episode from when it originally aired is unknown, but they were for whatever reason. Channel 4 bumps. Between 1998 and 2006, South Park was aired in the UK on the channel Channel 4. It only began airing on Comedy Central UK in 2005, so it makes sense that Channel 4 lost the license in 2006. So anyway, Channel 4 had its own South Park themed bumps during the time it had the show that played before episodes, which featured a character on the right of the screen with something happening to them, and then the Channel 4 logo, usually with an announcement stating what the upcoming episode is about.
David Blaine leaves us spellbound and speechless at 12:10 after he shows up to shatter their illusions in South Park.
They also had their own promos for the series. Fun with Veal original airing. Similar to Scott Tenorman Must Die, Season 6's Fun with Veal was also different in the version originally aired, although here the change makes more sense as the originally aired version clearly had a mistake. So apparently in the original airing on March 27, 2002, supposedly when Cartman says me, they forgot to pitch it up. However, I couldn't find the clip of this or any clip from the initial airing, but a recording of the original airing definitely exists because there are images from it. And I swear, like a month ago when I made this Iceberg, I saw a recording of it, but now I can't find it, so comment down below if you find anything. PG episodes. So, in the UK, every episode of South Park has to be individually rated for it to be able to be released onto home media. Now, most episodes receive a rating of 15, equivalent to an R for Americans. However, some are rated 12, which is the equivalent to PG-13. But somehow, some manage to get a PG rating, meaning an 8-year-old could watch it, as the BBFC recommends 8 as the age for PG. But also, that doesn't even matter really. Anyone can watch something with a PG rating, even like a 4-year-old could watch these. Anyway, the PG episodes are Starvin' Marvin Conjoined Fetus Lady, and Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus. So if you're in the UK and you want to show a child South Park, they're allowed to watch these 3 episodes. Sora Not Sorry UK error. So this one's not actually on the Iceberg because when it was made, it didn't exist. But when season 28 episode 3, Sora Not Sorry, aired in the UK, they accidentally left this purple screen at the start that lists the timings for the commercial breaks and starts and end of the episode, the title and production code, and a bunch of technical info, like the aspect ratio and sound. Also, interestingly, at the bottom it says restriction post 930/RM editorial compliance Leo, which I don't exactly know what it means, but it sounds like it's interesting. This was obviously not intended to be shown, and they've since fixed whatever caused this as the following episode, Turkey Trot, aired without it. Red screen HBO glitch. So there's this creepy glitch that has been reported to have happened in the past where people have been watching South Park on HBO Max and then the screen goes all evil and red. So like, why is this? Is it cursed? Well, probably not. The likely reason is just some HBO specific glitch, as this hasn't been reported to have happened elsewhere. I'm not exactly sure what causes it, however I did notice in each example subtitles are on. So I mean, maybe that's something to do with it. And that concludes the South Park Iceberg. Please like, hype, and subscribe because this took ages to make. Also, shout out to WEQFR23FWQR12, who is a Don't Buy This tier member, which is actually crazy, and thus, as the perks for that tier state, I have indeed had their channel printed out and framed, and it's currently behind me as I'm recording this. So, big shout out to you and goodbye.